guys remember this Modern Warfare 2 Easter egg that turned out to be fake? Yeah, this so-called Easter egg tricked an entire generation of Call of Duty players back in the day. But what about all the real hidden Easter eggs? My name's Elijah, and Luke and I spent hours upon hours looking at every single Call of Duty game in the entire franchise, searching high and low for every single Easter egg, secret reference, or hidden detail from every single Call of Duty game in the entire franchise. And while we'll cover the popular ones, I guarantee you there are many Easter eggs you've never seen before. Matter of fact, we found multiple Easter eggs that we don't think anyone's even documented before at all. So we'll be starting at Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, running all the way through till modern day Modern Warfare 3. We'll circle back into the original Call of Duty trilogy. We'll look at some spin-offs and some other odd things that we found that are across all the Call of Duty games. But I think we made the ultimate Easter egg video, so let's go ahead and jump into it. If you've ever wondered what's going on with the obsession of teddy bears in Call of Duty games, a lot of people point to Call of Duty 4 as being the origin of like this recurring teddy bear Easter egg, but really it actually started back in the Call of Duty 2 days, and we'll talk about that way later on. But yeah, in Call of Duty 2, teddy bears were used in the training practice at the beginning of the campaign for the Soviets, and most Call of Duty games were built off of an engine that kind of split from the Call of Duty 2 engine originally. So this teddy bear model was just kind of an asset floating around that all developers had access to, and starting with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare forward, teddy bears would make their way hiddenly into a bunch of different Call of Duty titles. Now, of course, you can see teddy bears in multiple different places in the campaign already. You can find teddy bears in Blackout, Warpig, Safe House, and that honestly is just the tip of the iceberg. The teddy bears show up in various locations throughout the campaign, but they also show up in the multiplayer side of things as well. On the multiplayer map Ambush, you can find a teddy bear by some boxes. On Block, there's one hidden in some debris. There's another one by this crib. On Crossfire, there's one on this bed, and there's one inside of this house in Overgrown. On Chinatown, oddly enough, if you smash the television, there's a teddy bear inside of the television. And yeah, the teddy bears are just something kind of interesting that show up in a lot of Call of Duty games. If you stay through the credits of Call of Duty 4's campaign, there's an interesting Call of Duty 4 rap that plays. A lot of people don't remember this, and also remember that it's rapped by the character Griggs. Yeah, he just has a mixtape. The song's called Deep and Hard, which seems pretty in fashion for COD 4. If you've seen the movie War Games, it originally released back in 1983. The movie had this supercomputer, and this like high school student played by Matthew Broderick ends up hacking into it. He almost starts a global thermonuclear war. Nonetheless, this computer actually shows up in the campaign level No Fighting in the War Room, which the name of that campaign level in itself is also a reference to the 1964 movie Dr. Strangelove, which is a quote, "No fighting in the war room."
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
The first level of the campaign, Crew Expendable, actually has a ton of references to the Alien franchise. First of all, the level itself, Crew Expendable, is a reference to the first film. And then in the level itself, there's some dialogue talking about, keeping a shotgun for close quarters. And those are lines directly from the movie, along with the soldier we are leaving line. Also, if you miss the jump on this level, like when you're supposed to make it onto the helicopter, you'll get this line of text, which is a reference to The Matrix, where the character says, no one ever makes the first jump, about Keanu.
No one's ever made the first jump.
On the campaign level, Mile High Club, that bonus level from the end, the famous one with the airplane, Price makes a little reference to the movie Airplanes.
Surely you can't be serious. I'm serious. And don't call me Shirley.
And don't call me Shirley. Airplane.
The campaign level, Charlie's Don't Surf, is a reference to the movie Apocalypse Now. Also, did you ever notice that the multiplayer map DLC Chinatown is a remake of Carentan from the original Call of Duty map? Yeah, I actually never knew this until we started doing research for this video. On the multiplayer map Backlot, you can find the Infinity Ward logo over here. And early on in the prologue level of the game, you can see Jason West's face, the studio head at the time, spray painted on one of the walls over here. If you're playing on the multiplayer map Shipment, this was the first game to introduce Shipment, by the way, you can find different text on the shipping containers saying IW and COD 4. And over in Call of Duty 4 Remastered, like the more recent remake to this game, if you are playing on the sniper level, you can actually see Yuri just chilling in the back of the car, which he originally wasn't in the OG COD 4, and you get an achievement for stopping the events of all the later Call of Duty games. If you go over here and kill Makarov, who also wasn't there in the original version of the game, but they later retconned him in for the story focus of the game. And And then another interesting thing about that big sniper level that gave you that achievement, if you shot Yuri instead, you'd actually get a friendly fire is not tolerated message, even though this is like way before Price and Yuri teamed up. But it still is a little clever nod to the later Modern Warfare games that they took advantage of when doing this remaster. Also in Call of Duty 4 Remastered, there's this interesting Easter egg, I guess, where if you activate the melon head cheat and you play on the mission where you have the sniper and whatnot, and you follow Captain McMillan, his name is changed to Captain Macmelon, and his head is now that of a melon. That's so cool. Call of Duty 4 Reflex for the Wii actually had a secret Easter egg exclusive to its game, where if you found a certain piece of intel only found in the Wii version, you could unlock a paintball mode for the game. On the campaign level, The Bog, there's a Marine with the name Sergeant Roysowicz. This is named after a studio developer at Infinity Ward, who we'll talk about a little bit later when we get to Modern Warfare 2, so we won't go into detail now, but just hang tight. Also, on the multiplayer map Showdown, there's a dancing chicken hidden outside of the map, like up on top over here. Also, Call of Duty 4 was the first Call of Duty game to have a seasonal map, where in the PC only version of COD 4, or I guess the Mac version as well, they updated a special version of the multiplayer map Crash to be Winter Crash, which was like a Christmas themed version of that map. This never actually made it to console versions until way later when Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered would release. To this day, a lot of people don't realize Call of Duty World at War is the first game in the Black Ops saga, obviously because it's not called Black Ops. But this game established a ton of things that would be staples in later Black Ops games. Characters like Reznov were first introduced here. This is where the debut of zombies came from, where a lot of the lore and universe would be established. And there were some iconic multiplayer maps that would become staples that would be brought back in later Call of Duty games over the years. If you use the computer in Call of Duty Black Ops, you can actually get intel information about Alex Mason's father, who apparently during World War II earned a Purple Heart during the Battle of Macon Atoll, the first level of Call of Duty World at War. In Black Ops' campaign level, where you're in the Pentagon, or on the Zombies level 5, you can see pictures on the wall referencing World at War. There's one of Sergeant Roebuck, one of the main characters, a picture from the multiplayer level Black Cats, which is where you're fighting in the Battle of Midway, and the plaque even mentions the Battle of Peleliu. On the World at War level, Burn 'em Out, during this level, it's stated that the temperature is 115 degrees, which is a reference to the memoir, The Old Breed by Eugene Sledge, where he shared his experiences during the Battle of Peleliu and how temperatures went up to 115 degrees. But also, whether it was intentional or not, this was the first Black Ops use of 115, which played a massive role in Zombies storyline, but also is just a number that appears all over the place in the Black Ops saga, besides just being related to zombies. In the very first Zombies map, first introduced in Call of Duty World at War, the text Ascend from Darkness is written on the walls by this staircase. Ascend from Darkness would be a major story element in the Zombies universe, but also a main story element in Black Ops as a part of Reznov's escape plan from Vorkuta. There's also references across Call of Duty Black Ops 1 suggesting that Alex Mason is a candidate for the Manchurian Project, which not only was a psychological film, but also has ties to MK Ultra. This thing goes really deep with some of the references and little nods, and sometimes it seems like they go nowhere, and then sometimes it seems like they're all connected together in this giant like web. Throughout the main campaign of Call of Duty World at War, there are 13 different hidden death cards that you can find and locate. They're essentially like intel or other little hidden collectibles throughout the campaign, except each death card can act as a modifier, changing up certain elements of the game, making the game pretty crazy and unique, like adding zombies to the main campaign mode. There are 13 different death cards. They can be found here, 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 and here. On the second level of World at War's campaign, if you jump in these pools on the beach over here on kind of the left side of where you first start the level, you can activate an Easter egg that causes these statue dogs to come up with the ray gun inside of it, and you can use the ray gun for the rest of the level. This marks the first appearance of the ray gun in Call of Duty. On the first level of the campaign, there's a Marine here that gets attacked, and his name is Private Ryan, and if you stop the enemy from killing him, you can get an achievement where it's a reference to the movie Saving Private Ryan, where in this achievement, you saved Private Ryan. In one of the most popular sniper levels of all level of Call of Duty, Vendetta. The level starts players off inside of a fountain surrounded by a bunch of dead soldiers. There's a lot of imagery and homage in this level directed at the film Enemy at the Gates. Actually, this film was a huge influence for a lot of World at War's story. Besides just the fountain scene, there's the stuff with the mannequins, which are also seen here in the campaign level. Also in this level, if you no-scope one of the soldiers, Reznov will comment on it. Apparently, if you look at these soldiers the right way, the bloodstains resemble the Grim Reaper. I don't know if I see it. I kind of see it. On the second level, you can see that this vehicle is named Jiggling Julie. In both the campaign and the multiplayer level where you go to the asylum, you can hear weird whispering sounds in the background that just sounds a little unsettling. Also in the campaign section, there are these drawings of figures and blood, which is also kind of creepy. In World at War, your actions towards the surrendering soldiers at the end of this campaign level will actually influence how Chernov documents his experiences in the war in his journal. He'll either call you a hero or think of you as like a ruthless soldier. On the last level of the campaign, you can shoot the Panzerhaust at this giant eagle and it will collapse into the room, and Reznov will even comment on it. Castle is one of the iconic multiplayer levels introduced in Call of Duty World at War and was brought back years later in Vanguard, but in Vanguard there's a radio playing Morse code that translates to SGAUS, maybe standing for Sledgehammer Games Australia, who of course worked on Vanguard. On the campaign level Macon, there's a German youth knife in a fish apparently here. I never knew about this one. On the level Subpens, you can actually find this doghouse that's labeled Dan's Doghouse, probably a reference to a developer or something. On the multiplayer map Hangar, if you go down this ladder here and you are in this prisoner room or something, if you listen carefully, you can hear some creepy torture sounds. I don't know how else to explain it, but it does sound rather ghostly. And of course, this game was the first Call of Duty game to ever feature zombies, which actually was just a post-credits Easter egg mode that you could only access by beating the campaign. It wouldn't be until a title update later on where they added zombies as its dedicated playlist mode outside of being attached to the campaign. So in itself, it was its own Easter egg just existing. Also, of course, there's a classic: if you stab the knife by the random box, it'll play some music. On Verrucht, which is of course that asylum multiplayer level but turned into a zombie map, even creepier, if you listen inside of this, you can hear a baby crying. If you go to over here and hold down the action button, you can hear a drill and screaming, which is kind of terrifying. In the power room, mind you, this is the first zombies game to have players need to turn on the power, you can hear some numbers repeated in this deep electrified tone. And these numbers are actually the secret numbers from the television series Lost. To this day, these numbers still show up in so many different franchises and Easter eggs. Also on Verrucht, if you flush the toilet 3 times, you can activate the first ever sung zombies Easter egg, Elena Sigmund's Lullaby for a Dead Man. Over on Shinonuma, the next zombie map to release, if you knocked this hanging man down with grenades, and then if you stand on top of him, it will cause the entire game to reset no matter what round you're on, and the zombies starting back at round 1 will be much stronger than they were before. Then also, if you go to Doctor's Quarters and you interact with this journal here, Richtofen will just start laughing maniacally. This led to a ton of speculation all the way back in the day as to what this character's role was, because originally Richtofen was introduced for the first time ever in Shinonuma, so it was like a really big deal. They didn't have characters before this DLC expansion. Yeah, it kind of started the whole rabbit hole of people trying to figure out the larger connected story of Call of Duty Zombies. In Call of Duty Zombies Mobile, it was like an iPhone adaptation of the World at War maps that used to be available back in the day. There was this whole extra arc on the Shinonuma map where you dug up Peter's grave from the story, but the story's not canon on the phone, so, but yeah, there was a little Easter egg there. Also, if you go to this phone hidden away in Shinonuma, you can activate the second Easter egg song, The One.
Another music Easter egg. I like this.
Also, if you walk in the swamp back to this corner, you can see the giant meteorite that might be causing some of the zombie outbreaks out here. I think the meteorite was linked with the 115 element in the lore. There's even a reference with writing on the walls to the Tunguska event, which was a real world event that happened in 1908 when what is believed to have been a giant asteroid or comet crashed near the Tunguska River, which is near modern-day Krasnoyarsk Krai, Russia. The blast was massive, flattening an estimated 80 million trees over an 830 square meter area of forest. There's still a ton of mystery regarding this, and a ton of conspiracy theories to this day, so it's interesting that they have this little reference here in Shinonuma, and of course a little meteorite hidden over here in the corner. And then there's the final zombies map in World at War Deriza. There's hidden radios around the map that give more story to the creation of zombies. There's 3 secret tubes that you can activate that will cause the Beauty of Annihilation secret track to play, which is just a banger. If you throw a monkey into the furnace, it'll start screaming and you can hear Samantha yell some stuff at you.
Hey, you're so cruel, Mr. Monkey! Mr. Monkey just wanted to play!
If you shoot a pack-a-punched weapon over at this little button over here in the distance, you can activate a secret Easter egg called the Fly Trap, and essentially these things fly in the air and you have to go find these clues. It's pretty much just a giant distraction and doesn't really result in anything, but it's still a really cool hidden thing as you have to run around and find like a teddy bear with Juggernog and a sickle. In some versions of this map, as this map was brought back multiple times over the years, there's JD written on the wall, which likely is a reference to community manager Josh Olin, who worked at Treyarch, but that's still unconfirmed. But he used to go by the name JD 2020 back on the World at War forums and whatnot. If you look closely at this board here, you can see pictures of locations that later would be used as zombie maps in the future. Now, some of these locations were actually intended for another DLC that never came to World at War, and the maps would be changed before their release in Black Ops, but it's still cool to see that even all the way back then, there were plans for what the future would hold for these zombie maps. Also, if you look in the distance back here, you can see another hanging man over here, though you can't knock this one down. On the rooftops of the main area, just in the little outer section, you can see help and SOS written in sandbags, and the clock here is of course set to 115 or 115. Also on Deriza, if you lay down in front of the various perk machines, you'll actually sometimes get some money, and it gives you like an odd number of points, which is different than what normally you would have.
Hey guys, this is Ultimate Game Cheater, and I'm doing a glitch to get you free points.
In Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the trend of having teddy bears hidden throughout the game is continued here. On the multiplayer map High Rise, if you go to the little secret area where you like jumped on this thing, ran across this way, climbed up under the roof over here, you'd see a bunch of teddy bears kind of just like littered across the rooftop. On Underpass, there's a teddy bear on a catwalk over inside this warehouse. On the multiplayer map Derail, there's a teddy bear inside of one of the cabinets, which took Luke and I a couple of minutes to actually find. We didn't believe it was here for a minute, but then we eventually found one. There's one on Afghan over by this mattress. There's one inside of the house on Estate, but this will also show up again in another minute. Hang on. We found one on these buildings in Favela. We found one over here in Wasteland, and we found another one on Scrapyard, and that was it for the base game maps. The teddy bears show up a few more times in the campaign or in Spec Ops as well, especially on anything involving this estate, like on the Spec Ops Mission Estate Takedown. We can see a teddy bear under the stairs. On the campaign level, Loose Ends, there's a teddy bear in the bathroom. Also on that one campaign level, Exodus, there's like a teddy bear that maybe was playing chess with someone. I don't know. Also, there was a teddy bear in No Russian. If you go into free camera mode on the DLC map Salvage, you can actually find this torn up teddy bear along with the text Alex Roycewicz 2010. Alex Roycewicz is actually a developer from the Infinity Ward team working on Call of Duty games since 2006, starting out as a level designer and later becoming a senior designer, and actually has hid several references to himself in various Call of Duty multiplayer maps. For instance, also on the map Salvage, there's this sign that says Roycevic Office and Retail Space, and then of course there was that random marine we talked about earlier from COD 4 with the same name. Similarly, on the DLC map Carnival, there's graffiti that has the Infinity Ward tag on it with names and initials of developers. There was this pink stuffed mongoose thing, which was a nice change of pace place from a teddy bear, where then right next to it there was a giant teddy bear hidden back here in this like little thing. There also was this famous water cup design here as well. I don't know if this counts as an Easter egg. I'm just putting it here because I think it's funny. On the campaign level, Wolverines, or the equivalent Spec Ops level, if you go into some of those back buildings that you have access to over in this like big like outdoor shopping area, there's a ton of pictures of developers all over the place here. Some of them are kind of interesting, like this one with a camel in it. I don't know, I like this picture. I don't know, I just think it's awesome whenever developers hide pictures of themselves in games, especially if it's like clever, like this one where they're on a roller coaster or something. If you go to Burger Town, there's a little like payphone here, and if you look at the payphone closely, the brand of the company that makes the payphone is called COD 4. If you go to the map terminal and you look at the flight departures, you can see that there is a flight heading to Tehran, which is flight 1337, which is like the elite number. How clever. If you're playing on Loose Ends and you go inside of the upstairs little bathroom area and look inside the bathtub, you can find this floaty toy here. I don't know why our editors had to censor this, but yeah, it's totally just a floaty toy. This floaty does show up in a couple of other instances. You can see it kind of tucked away on the estate multiplayer map, and you can even find it on top of a mattress on the multiplayer map Trailer Park. And then can you believe it? They actually changed out the way that the floaty looked in Modern Warfare 2 Remastered for some reason. I don't know what's going on. Also on the multiplayer map Trailer Park, I was trying to make out what the Patriot Beer subtitle says here. I want to say it says original shitty taste, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Going back to the multiplayer map Derail, we found 1337 printed on a train over here as well. We found another train that said IW 2002, which is a reference to Infinity Ward and 2002, the year that the studio opened. On Estate and other levels, there's car license plates that say IW4 2009, IW4 being the name of the engine that Modern Warfare 2 runs on, and 2009 being the year the game released. Also, there's some pretty interesting movie posters on Estate and some other maps as well, like this one for International Samurai. There's some other interesting movie posters worth looking at if you ever take your time in Modern Warfare 2. We found this booth selling various items like gum, which is called one-time use, and Sea of D's candy. Clever, Call of Duty. We found another Game Station 5, this one alongside some games like Deer Hunter 17. There's this other video game called Italian Plumber Princess Rescue, because why not? Like also on Estate Takedown, there's this poster of like a random female World War II soldier. There's actually quite a bit of mystery surrounding this character for quite some time, but it is mostly believed to be a minor character from Call of Duty 2's Russian campaign. She was just kind of like a stereotypical NPC, but one of the first female characters in all of Call of Duty, and she later got essentially turned into like a stock image, which was then recycled in the Modern Warfare trilogy. Still a cool poster. Also, going back to that Wolverines level, you ever notice that besides Burger Town, which you could run around in and have a great time, you know, a great campaign level, there was like that Taco Bell knockoff across the street. I always thought that was interesting and never got as much love as Burger Town, but if you go inside of the taco place, they sell the same burgers that Burger Town sells. What's going on here? There's some tinfoil hat conspiracy that someone needs to explore at some point. Why is this taco place selling Burger Town burgers? What's going on? Also, if you've ever noticed, like the main restaurant you go in on this level also is probably like a little Easter egg reference play on TGI Fridays. On the multiplayer map Skid Row, we actually found a couple of interesting references to Infinity Ward beyond what we initially have found, like iDub, which is like a play on IW, the initials of Infinity Ward, which are these headphones here. It shows up a couple other times. There's a few little Infinity Ward nuanced things that pop up in these little close designs. There's the special edition cover of Modern Warfare 2 over here, which is neat. There's also a reference in this newspaper stand to Call of Duty 2. Interesting how this game keeps coming back up time and time again. Then we see over here a list of brands that all resemble real world brands, but I guess are the Call of Duty parody equivalent. You can see like Reboot instead of Reebok, Ass instead of Adidas, NFL and MLG being represented. There's hockey and some version of NHL. I think this is the Fila brand maybe. Over on the multiplayer level Bailout, you can see that there's signs for lease on some buildings, and it's this company called IW, which is clever because it's like Infinity Ward's initial initials. Also, I was taking a closer look at the soda vending machine here, and some of the sodas looked interesting to say the least. There was a Blarb soda, Pew Pew, Fab soda, and something called Guzzle. Yeah. Also, there's some graffiti on various maps. I want to say this is like saying price, like a reference to the character in graffiti, but I'm not 100% sure. And then lastly, also on the map Salvage, which we looked at a little bit already, there is this memorial to Zakayev, just like randomly in one of the rooms. He was a character in COD 4, and they have his little picture here. On the multiplayer map Favela, if you punch this mirror for whatever reason, you'll take damage. I don't know if this is an Easter egg or a glitch, but it's something that exists. Also, it's worth noting across the Modern Warfare trilogy, a lot of assets and little minor Easter eggs are shared typically across the 3 games. So you might see something that you might have seen in another COD show up in a different COD, but yeah, they show up quite a bit. We talked about this one in our 3 hours of Call of Duty glitches video, but we're still not really sure what's going on with it. It could be a secret Easter egg that's still unsolved all this time later, or it could just be a weird glitch. But if you're playing Hidden, that one Spec Ops level where you have the snipers and you jump out of bounds by jumping on this car, then jumping across to this other car, and then jumping out of bounds, you can actually backtrack all the way through a very large portion of the campaign level from Call of Duty 4 that Hidden is based on. While this is completely out of bounds and not intended for players to go and explore, there are a lot of decorations around, like this creepy poster, and when I used a translating app, it said house, which I don't think is correct. We explored a bit more, and we even found these doors that have these little rooms that aren't in the original Call of Duty 4 version of the campaign level. Instead, there's these little secret rooms, and inside of each room is a table with some televisions that you can actually activate by holding down the X button, and it gives you these rainbow screens. But yeah, all of the televisions are activatable, and none of them existed in the COD 4 version of the campaign. I don't know what's going on here. Is this an Easter egg? Is this a glitch? I don't know. On the DLC map Trailer Park, there's this random gnome that you can shoot, and slowly we'll see more and more gnomes pop up across Call of Duty for whatever reason. I don't know what their purpose is, but they pop up and you can interact with them. Over on the multiplayer map Fuel, there's this little notebook journal thing down in here that says, "In MW2 we trust, Modern Warfare 2 weapons." And then if you play the Spec Ops version of Terminal, not the multiplayer version, if you go inside the store, you can find a boxed copy of Call of Duty, maybe Modern Warfare 2 it looks like, but this version of the game has Captain Price on the box art, which is different from the official box art you see in the game. It also has the older Call of Duty logo that was used more in the Call of Duty 2 era. Also, do you guys remember the Hornet's Nest mission from the Modern Warfare 2 campaign? The one where you have to like run away and quickly make it to the helicopter on the rooftops from the militia? Well, if you're playing Modern Warfare 2 Remastered and you're in this section where you're running for your life, if you press the weapon inspect button, even though you don't have a weapon out, Roach will start playing rock, paper, scissors with himself. He's pretty good at it, but yeah, I don't know why this is a thing, but it's kind of cool. Okay, we're gonna jump into the next Call of Duty in just a second, but real quick, we don't have a sponsor for today's video, so if you're planning on watching any more of this video, if you want to support our channel, just hit the subscribe button. These long videos take a ton of work, but they don't really drive in as many subscribers, mostly because our viewers are watching on television sets, and I know it's like a couple extra clicks, so I want to throw a reminder out there. If you've liked this video, you want to see more of our content, or have a chance of having our content show up again in your recommended in the future, hitting the subscribe button does actually go a really long way, and you can always change your mind and undo it later if that's the case. Okay, that's it. That's all we'll say. Let's go ahead and continue on.
And now we get to Black Ops 1. On the level Vorkuta, when the player drives a motorcycle while armed with a Model 1887 and also flipcocks it in one hand, it's very reminiscent from the scene in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which is probably a reference here. On the Pentagon level, when talking to Kennedy, you can see the time in Moscow is 1:15 or 1:15. On SOG, the song Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival plays, which is played during one of the Vietnam helicopter scenes in Forrest Gump. Fun fact, this level is set in 1968, and the song actually didn't come out until 1969. On numbers, you can get the Thunder Gun by picking up a tape at the beginning and inserting the tape into a tape player later in the level. The execution scene from Project Nova, where Kravchenko shoots surrendering Germans and then runs out of ammo, is a reference to the 2002 movie The Pianist. Crash Site has the whole boat scene that is a reference to Apocalypse Now, and the achievement Never never get off the boat is also a line from that movie. On Payback, in the room with Steiner's location, there's a picture of Dragovich, Kravchenko, Steiner, Petrenko, and Reznov all during the mission Project Nova. On the last level of the campaign, you can also find this NPC called Sgt. Pepper, which is a reference to that Beatles album. Also, if you look at Frank Wood's overall appearance, it's very likely that this character was heavily inspired by Charlie Sheen's character in the movie Platoon.
Also in the campaign, when you're in that one level where you meet JFK and like Mason has his little numbers attack or whatever you want to call this, very briefly you can see news report flashes making references to Lee Harvey Oswald, which a lot of players never noticed originally when playing this.
On the Hazard map, which is a remake of Cliffside from Call of Duty World at War, but now it's a golf course, if you go into the practice range room, there is a clock that is accurate to whatever time is on your system, and the room here also has a picture of the pool in the DLC level hotel. Also on this level, by the maintenance garage door, there are 2 bags of cement labeled product of Treyarch. Then outside of the map, there's a swimming pool over here, and you can see a candy bar just like floating in the water, which could be a reference to a scene in the movie Caddyshack. Also, apparently, if you are paying really close attention at random times, a gopher can be seen rising from the ground and then disappearing on this map, which could also be a reference to the movie Caddyshack. On the level firing range, if you look at the ammo here, you can see Tank Dempsey's name on it. Also, there's signs in firing range to bring beer, just in case you needed to know. And if you go into spectate mode and fly over to the water tower and look into the center, you can see a grunt from Halo. If you look at this sign, Out of Bounds, it's a reference to Mike Curran, who worked as a character artist on Call of Duty Black Ops. Over in this building, up in the rafters, you can see a hidden teddy bear. Also, there's some Pack-a-Punch Please Wait signs scattered around the map. There's some fans who think that on Radiation, if you look out of bounds here, you can see the Modern Warfare 2 level Rust. I don't know if it's one-to-one, but it is interesting that people think that this is Rust. I'm not convinced, but maybe I will be. On the level Villa, you can actually see cans that have Treyarch's name on it. On the level Berlin Wall, there's a store named Wagner, which is a famous German music composer. On the multiplayer level Kowloon, if the player watches one of the TVs for several seconds, a 5 in a circle will appear on the screen. And then if you look closer, you'll notice that the dial on the television is on the number 11, which could be a reference to Element 115, or just the number 115 again. On the multiplayer level Discovery, there's multiple signs warning people to watch their step with the word Dummkopf, which is apparently German for stupid head. On the multiplayer level Zoo, one of the posters depicts an actual Soviet poster from the 1920s dedicated to the first Russian animal trainer Nikolai Pavlik Gladilshevkov. In the motel reception area, there are magazines with images of Cosmic Silverback, which are the characters from the Dead Ops arcade, and they're just here on the cover of the magazines with images of the launch rocket with them. If you look at the building on the top right of this map, there's a cargo transport board showing the names of all the maps in the game, including the First Strike and Escalation packs. There's other interesting things you can find across the multiplayer, like there are some of these wanted posters all over multiple maps for a boy named Raphael Angelini. He was age 14, wanted for poning noobs and being awesome, and he's a very good Call of Duty player. This allegedly is a tribute to a young fan who was diagnosed with leukemia and visited Treyarch Studios with his family during the development of the DLC for Black Ops. On the level Hotel, if a player shoots one of the slot machines, it'll spill money out of it. Also, the room with the clocks is a reference to the office in Tony Montana's mansion in the movie Scarface. Over on the level Hangar 18, the player can see 3 alien carcasses covered with blankets, which also have hands with 4 fingers and blue feet with 4 toes sticking out from the blankets. Also, these bodies have a tag on them that read government property. Then over on the level Drive-In, there's this arcade section, and we see a really cool reference to Call of Duty World at War with a game called Uber Shooter that has this MP40 joystick.
In Call of Duty Black Ops 1 Nuketown, also, if you shoot off the heads of all of the mannequins at the beginning of a Nuketown game in just 15 seconds, the song Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones will begin to play. This one does require multiple players, and the mannequins spawn randomly, so it's a little bit tricky, and sometimes the mannequins are outside of the map, but nonetheless, you pull this off. It's a cool classic Easter egg from back in the day.
Okay, but Black Ops 1 obviously had a ton of things going on when it came to Zombies mode as well. On Notchner Untoten's remake, the original Zombies map, remade in Black Ops 1, you can get a secret song by shooting all of the explosive barrels outside, and it's like a nice guitar riff for a while. On Kino der Toten, if you run around the map and you find 3 element 115 rocks, you can activate the song 115, which is a banger. Also, when you're teleporting up to the film room to access the Pack-a-Punch machine, sometimes you'll be teleported into Samantha's room, one of the characters from the zombie universe. It's this whole arc. But you can grab a film reel and then play it on the giant screen monitor next time you go up into the room. Over on the Zombies map 5, if you activate the 3 red phones, the Eminem song Won't Back Down will play, featuring Pink. Also on this Zombies map, on the wall next to the MPL, there's a picture of Major John Plaster, who provided work for Call of Duty Black Ops. There's a crazy series of Easter eggs that was only discovered about 5 or 6 months ago at the time of recording this. The date's all the way back to Black Ops 1, which is really wild to think about. But on the Zombies level 5, and possibly also in the Pentagon level, there is a document that has some text on it. And because resolution in the older Call of Duties wasn't that great, it was rather hard to understand what it said, and I don't think too many people looked into it. However, this document was brought back later on in a DLC for Call of Duty Black Ops 3, used once again as just a decorative piece, but it actually has a bigger ties into the larger zombie universe and also the Black Ops universe. It ended up going into some stuff with the terminals, and then also, more interestingly enough, on Kino der Toten, there's like a series of letters on the ground, and nobody really thought to look into it as much, or maybe some people did but never made a full connection. But some of the letters spell out Manhattan Down, which could be a reference to the Manhattan Project, which is of course the nuclear bomb project, which ties back to Nuketown. From the looks of it, there's probably some more information specifically about this Easter egg, and there's unsolved things still regarding what the references here are and what they mean. But it looks like all the way back in Black Ops 1, this document might have been teasing that Nuketown would be brought back as a zombies map in the future, which it was in Black Ops 2, but maybe nobody actually caught that Easter egg back then. But this document specifically talks about White Sands Proving Ground Command Center, which is another reference to the Manhattan Project. It talks about New Mexico and the Sandia AEC facility. Then we can look at Ascension from Call of Duty Black Ops 1, and Ascension was really special because this was the first zombies map to really introduce an overarching Easter egg that serves more as a mission or quest rather than just like some optional secrets. We're not going to go too deep into every step and the whole lore of zombies because there's so many videos out there of people doing that already, but we will talk about all of the individual Easter eggs and the little details hidden along the way as well. But yeah, Ascension was a big deal. There was a whole Easter egg associated with destroying the rocket. You had to do all sorts of stuff. You had to like restore some mechanism, and all 4 players needed to have wonder weapons, but ultimately if you pulled off the whole Easter egg, you got a bigger look into the story, and every player would get a death machine for 90 seconds, which is pretty cool. As with the other zombies maps, there is a secret song hidden away, which is Abracadaver by Elena Segman, where you can activate the song by finding the 3 bears with sickles hidden on this map. There's also several different radios that play secret messages hidden in Ascension and other zombie maps across the universe of zombies. They usually go deeper into the story, and since they're featured so prominently, we're not going to mention them every single time we talk about a zombies map, but just know these are staples in the zombies series. On the loading screen of this level, the original one, you can actually see in the shadows of the rockets that are here the number 115 made out. There's also these Russian dolls of the original zombies characters scattered about for an Easter egg. On the next zombies map, Call of the Dead, there was actually another main Easter egg that could split 2 ways, whether you're playing solo or co-op, and was pretty involved. You had to like turn some dials and press buttons and climb up one way or another. The original zombies characters were like locked in this room, I think. Also, there are also 3 parts of a meteorite hidden across this map that if you activate all 3 parts, it will activate an Avenged Sevenfold song, Not Ready to Die. And also hidden on this map, you can find an Avenged Sevenfold poster. After this map, Shangri-La would be the next zombies map that would release and have this long Easter egg involving like an eclipse and activating different buttons and running around pressing stuff. But at the beginning of the zombies level, if a player stands in a certain spot of the starting room and puts up, down, A on their controller, the monkeys in the starting room apparently explode. It only works in the Black Ops version of the map though. Just like with the other maps in Black Ops Zombies, there are secret meteorite pieces hidden around this map that will play another song called Paradolia. And then of course there was the zombies map Moon, which was one of the biggest and most challenging zombie maps to come out at its time. This Easter egg was crazy. You had to do so many steps, and essentially, long story short, if you do all of the steps in the Easter egg, there's this big thing where you shoot rockets at Earth and it's like 115, and I don't know, there's like 2 separate Easter eggs and you have to do them both. One of them gives you 90 seconds with the death machine, and the other gives all players all perks, which is pretty cool too. And then of course the achievement associated with completing the Easter egg. Once again, this map had a secret song. This time it was called Coming Home. And also on the moon, there's 2 secret discs with retro remixes of other zombie songs, like 8-bit sounding remixes.
Modern Warfare 3 is actually notorious for having a ton of Easter eggs across its game. Matter of fact, Modern Warfare 3 might have the most Easter eggs out of any Call of Duty game we've looked at so far in this video. For instance, there's a ton of little references and locations and multiplayer maps, like on Arcaden, there's the Trob store, which is, I think, the Call of Duty universe's equivalent of an Apple store. It's like a little reference here. On the multiplayer map Village, if you look outside of the map, you can see this weird hatch over here with some numbers on the hatch. This is a reference to the first season of the TV show Lost, where there was a hatch discovered that also had those notorious numbers that Lost is known for. That wasn't the only Lost reference. In a lot of vendor locations within this game, you'll notice these things called Apollo bars, which are essentially the Apollo bars that were from Lost, and just another little like reference to them. Remember, this game was in development through 2010 and 2011, right when the final season of Lost was ending, so Lost hype was at a high. It makes sense there were so many Lost references here. Also, you can find this really cool Modern Warfare arcade cabinet, which is neat. Over on the multiplayer map Bootleg, I found this really interesting massage parlor. That's pretty cool. They're open till 4 a.m. You know, who wants to get the homies together to go get some late night massages? Seems like a good time. If you do the pit in Spec Ops, it's like the little like shooting range where you run through it as quickly as possible. At the very end of it, if you turn around, you can actually find a picture of Shepard with some throwing knives thrown into the picture, which is clever because in, you know, Modern Warfare 2, you hit him with that throwing knife. Over on the multiplayer map Boardwalk, there's a ton of these really interesting t-shirt designs, which utilize a ton of different like icons and emblems from Call of Duty and some other things, but there's this one that has this funny dog in it, so that's cool. I think there's even a reference to the Red Ring of Death, which is kind of clever. There's also like other little games you can play, like this water gun shootout game that you can play, and you could even end up winning a teddy bear. Uh-oh. This is one of the many teddy bear Easter eggs hidden in Modern Warfare 3. On the multiplayer map Lockdown, if you go into Free Spectate and you fly inside of a random window just slightly out of bounds, you can find a pretty big teddy bear dual-wielding gold desert eagles. Modern Warfare 3 is going pretty hard with its teddy bear Easter eggs already. There's a regular teddy bear hidden on the multiplayer map Dome underneath this desk. Baccarat has a teddy bear that's kind of ripped up on one of the shelves. There's a pretty big teddy bear hidden inside of one of the structures on Village, and a smaller one next to the Modern Warfare arcade on Village. On Seatown, there's a teddy bear by these rocks near the water. There's a secret teddy bear inside of one of the bells on Piazza. On Outpost, there's a secret teddy bear way up on top of one of the watchtowers. And on Mission, there is a teddy bear hidden inside of a building next to the sign that says Porter was here. We're going to talk about Porter in a second, so just hang tight, we'll be back to that one. In Arcaden, there's a teddy bear inside of the little fast food restaurant. On Bootleg, there's a teddy bear set up in front of the CRT television. At least he's not inside the TV this time. On Carvin, there's a teddy bear inside this round thing. In Black Box, we have a teddy bear that's on a little floaty toy with a Captain Price hat on it. And then on Sanctuary, there's another teddy bear on this little chair. Going back to that Boardwalk map, there's some other interesting games represented in this map as well. They look like old classic Atari games, and they're actually all references to classic Atari games that Activision originally put out way back in the day. These games were Star Master, Pitfall, Kung Fu Master, and Robot Tank. There's this little girl with a sledgehammer over in this under wall section, and this is a reference likely to Sledgehammer Games, but it also could be a Zombies reference. I'm not really sure. It's definitely a Sledgehammer Games reference first and foremost though, but then again, you know, we have like the little teddy bear again here. If you look at the stock exchange, either in the campaign level or in the multiplayer level equivalent, you'll notice that there are a couple of interesting stock options like Activision, Blizzard, or Sledgehammer Games. If you look at the newspapers on the floor in front of the stock exchange, you can see a reference to Call of Duty 2 being one of the main stories here. On the multiplayer map Sanctuary, there's some creepy, ghostly sounding voices that you can hear in various locations of the map. Some of them might be a reference to that one controversial Modern Warfare 3 cutscene level thing with the terrorist attack. Listen to this. On the map Liberation, you can find some carvings on this like little wooden thing that says "You mad, bro?" which was like a saying people used to say in the Call of Duty days. On one of the dead bodies on the multiplayer map Lockdown, there's like a spray can that says "So Intense" with a double rainbow, which is a reference to the double rainbow guy. May he rest in peace. If you look at this Modern Warfare emblem on the arcade cabinet, it looks like Mario. This is also an emblem you can unlock in the game, but I didn't realize it's actually Price and like in a Mario style. I always just thought it was like a weird Mario knockoff. I never put two and two together. Oh, also here's a developer picture of a dog. On the multiplayer map Overwatch, if you go out of bounds using the free spectate camera and fly up towards the top to this little like crane tower, you can see a little chicken up there just watching over everything. If you've ever taken a very close look at the Modern Warfare 3 railway system, you can notice there are a lot of clever Easter egg or just memes that they kind of threw in here. IW Matt Park shows up, Kriegler Metropolitan shows up, and you might have noticed Kriegler's name spread across multiple Modern Warfare games. He was one of the designers. He was all the way back there in the COD 4 days, so some like random crates back then would say Kriegler, and here it is here. Over here there's like Gutter Street and Mouth Avenue, as if it says like Gutter Mouth. There's also Roxbox Railway, which will come up later with something that I caught in a later Call of Duty game. I don't quite understand what the reference is to, so if anybody knows what this one's about, please do let me know, but I'll bring it up again in a little bit. In the meantime, you can enjoy other symbols on this map, like Coconuts Street. There's Mojo Jojo, Infinity Station Ward, Trashing Ruben's Place, all surrounding Humped Armadillo Town. I don't know what's going on here. There's a ton of other ones like These Nuts Avenue. If you catch one that we missed here, feel free to comment it down below. If you look at the back of the control tower on Outpost, you can find this Infinity Ward emblem, I guess? Who would have known? The Infinite States of Ward is now canon, I guess. There's a magazine of a bearded man who apparently invented time traveling. If you look very carefully on the multiplayer map Mission, you can see what kind of looks like a bear in a ballerina outfit, I guess. That's what people in the community think it is, at least. On Hardhead, there's a Ned sign. I don't get this reference. Is it a developer or something hidden here? I'm pretty sure this is a developer reference, but yeah, here it is. And on Sanctuary, there's this pervert looking guy here. I don't know what else to call this. In both Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3, you could find these candies that are obviously a play on like the candy Good and Plenty, but they're called Sweet and Sexies. Also, I'll be honest, I thought that this was gum for a really long time until Luke pointed out to me that it was a camera and not gum, and I felt kind of dumb. Also, on this multiplayer map Underground, if you look at the phone here, it says US, and this definitely is not in the US. Also, over here on Bootleg, we found this sign that says, "If it swim, we have it," which does sound like a very efficient seafood business model. Also, this map here on Boardwalk has a lot of Easter eggs going on just beyond the ones we've looked at. There's a lot more. Some we don't even know for sure if they're Easter eggs or not, but we decided to include them anyways. This sign here says, "How good is your stroke? 2 balls." Okay, I'm not gonna say anything. It might be an innuendo. Over here, there's this signage suggesting that they are a proud member of the IW Raven Barbecue Association. Something that I definitely like to believe actually exists. Like members of Infinity Ward and Raven Software get together and talk about barbecuing stuff. I like this idea. Over here on this map, we can see that Madman Logan was the rib-eating champion of that year. So, hey, good job there. Also, if you're looking out on the ocean side of the map, you can see this sign warning you about riptides, which is absolutely wild. Also, inside the interior area of the map, we found this sign, which I'm pretty sure is a reference to Ghost from Modern Warfare 2. May he rest in peace. This is the real true Ghost, not the fake ghosts we got in Call of Duty Ghost, and also not the fake Ghost we got in Modern Warfare, the newer ones. Over here, you can see a game called Porter Justice 8, and we see Porter show up quite a bit, and we'll come back to this later, but I'm pretty sure it's a developer reference. Also over here on Resistance, you can see that these are likely references to multiple different Modern Warfare 3 developers here in like this merchandise. Okay, then next to the You Mad carving, you can actually see there's another name, Ned. Okay, we've seen Ned pop up quite a few times in Call of Duty Easter eggs already. So who is this guy? A little bit of research had us find that this was Keith Bell, whose nickname was Ned, and he was working as a all the way back in the Medal of Honor Allied Assault days before switching over to Activision with Infinity Ward, where he would work on multiple Call of Duty games, including the Modern Warfare Trilogy. Okay, and then when we were filming footage for this video, we were running around on the map Black Box, and I stumbled across this picture, which this might be a stretch. I have a feeling that this might be a picture of some developers, maybe even a Raven Software developer. It was just a hunch. I don't know why I had that assumption, but I'll let you guys try to get to the bottom of it. Also, I don't know if anyone noticed this, but exclusively to Modern Warfare 3, the porta potties have a phone number for the company that does the porta potties, which is 555 dump. This wasn't in Modern Warfare 2, just Modern Warfare 3. And yeah, I guess it's kind of clever. Also, over here on Liberation, you can see this pretzel stand, which is referencing Kurds pretzels. This will play a role in a little bit when we get to Call of Duty Ghosts, so just like hang tight, but remember this existing.
In the first level of Black Ops 2's campaign, where you find woods, you look at the blood, oh look, it's that blood stain that apparently looks like the Grim Reaper from World at War. Apparently. I still don't see it, but it's funny it's back again. On the next level, Solarium, after clearing out a wave of enemies, you can actually see Thor's hammer stuck in the ground over here. On the campaign level Odysseus, you can actually find a little sticky note referencing that zombies are coming. During the secret ending of Black Ops 2, when we have this amazing performance here, when you get around the 5-minute mark of the song, you can actually see zombies in the rafters on the left side of the screen. On the level Nuketown, there's a cool retro games Easter egg that happens if you shoot all the mannequin heads right away at the beginning of the game starting. On the shelf over here, you can actually see mini figures of the old Nuketown sign and mannequins. And on the outside of the map, you can see flags for the Spetsnaz and Black Ops, which are the call signs referring to the factions in the original Call of Duty Black Ops. Over on Hijacked, upstairs at the bottom end of the map, there's a book that says Edward Richtofen, which are like the books scattered all over Black Ops 1. On the map Express, there are posters in the tunnel for movies called Hijacked, Meltdown, and Yemen, all referring to other maps in Black Ops 2. In the map Cove, if the player looks from the beach, out in the distance, you can see the boat from the map Hijacked. On the multiplayer map Cargo, most of the containers on the map say 3 Arc, a reference to Treyarch. On the map Hijacked, on both sides of the boat, you can actually see Von Voyage spelled like this, likely a reference to David Vonderhaar. On the multiplayer map Meltdown, there's some donuts here that are a reference to The Simpsons because of where Homer works at like a nuclear factory, and here we are. On the map Plaza, one of the jewelry stores is named Dale's, which is a reference to the real-life jewelry store Zales. Also, the song on this map is Skrillex' I'ma Try It Out featuring Alvin Risk. In some of the stores, there are brochure racks which contain a brochure to the Oasis Resort, a map that was a downloadable content map for Modern Warfare 3. When playing on the map Raid, you can actually see the map Aftermath in the distance from the pool area, yet on the other way around, when you're playing on Aftermath, you can't see the Raid mansion. On the level Standoff, there's a building in the map that has a clock in it, and the players find the clock. The small hand is on the 9, the second counter on the 3, and the big hand on the 5, referencing Group 935 from Zombies mode. Over on Turbine, there are some whiteboards in the control room with post-it notes on it. They read Zombies Are Coming, Milk and Diapers, which is possibly a shopping list, Save the Whales, Recycle, and then this one also has like Fix Turbines on it, but it's written and like scratched out. There's some interesting books here also, Frankenstein, Grimm's Fairy Tales, and Jungle Book to name a few. Also going back to Nuketown, there are 2 more mailboxes outside of the map under the Nuketown sign, and they're a little bit blurry, but when you zoom into them with a sniper scope, they read Mason Firth and Hoggett, the last names of developers over at Treyarch. On Grind, there are multiple signs around the map that say Vert Games, a possible reference to the X Games, which are an extreme sports competition held in California. On the map Downhill, there is a hat on the snowman that can be moved. On Mirage, in the room with the bar, Club Solar beverage coasters are used from the campaign club, even though this is technically a different club. On the map Studio, in the interior of the large trailer, several weapon props can be seen. This includes like dual-wield ray guns and Vector K-10s, along with the ray gun Mark II. The level also makes a reference to Godzilla with this miniature city section of the map and large 4-toed footprints on the road. Over on Encore, there's many famous London landmarks that can be seen in the background out of bounds of this map. The drums found backstage will make noises if they're knifed or shot. Also going back to Cove, there's some interesting Castaway references here too, like a rock showing how many days a person's been on the island. There's this makeshift raft. Help is spelled out here with coconuts. Over on Rush, in the paintball shop, you can see magazines with pictures of Grind, Downhill, Hill and Raid on the cover. And then on the multiplayer map Detour, you can see multiple New York sites in the distance, like the Brooklyn Bridge and the One World Trade Center. But what about zombies? Black Ops 2 took zombies to a whole nother level, and things got really deep. This is kind of where the big fork starts to happen in zombies, where the lines are blurred between Easter eggs and objectives, and then little like secret nods and intentional clues. We're mostly focusing on the little secrets here, but we'll still mention all of the major Easter eggs of the zombie maps moving forward. On Transit in the tunnel, there's a green highway sign hanging from the roof with all but a few letters blacked out. The remaining letters spell Day X by to me, which could mean day crosses over to me. In the diner area, the sign's letters that are still lit spell now die and on for you. Holding down the action button on 3 different teddy bears that are hidden around the map will activate the song Carry On. And then of course the main Easter egg was the Tower of Babel Easter egg. Babel? Babel? I don't know. My zombie lore knowledge is limited at best. But it's just a long quest line. There's a ton of different things you get to do in it. And then at the end you can choose to complete it in Maxis or Richtofon's favor. Also, if you run through the fields here, you can find the original house from the first Zombies map in World at War. It's kind of hidden away, tucked back here for some reason. In Black Ops 2 Nuketown Zombies, there's an Easter egg involving one of the characters from the Zombies level Transit, speaking hidden away in the bunker here. Also, after surviving quite a few rounds on Black Ops 2 Nuketown Zombies, eventually there will be like a struggle for power and Richtofon will take over the zombies, as this map is taking place at the same time as the Moon Easter egg from Black Ops 1. Over on Die Rise, there was another lengthy Easter egg similar to the main one that Transit had, but this time it was called High Maintenance, which also let you choose to complete it in Maxis or Richtofon's favor again. Die Rise had this little secret that messed with a lot of people, hiding PhD Flopper. It's unobtainable, and it would have been really cool to have on this map, but they hid it in a way where players can't get to it, likely just to taunt players, as the verticality of this map would have been awesome for this. And then of course there's another hidden song, We All Fall Down, which can be activated by finding 3 teddy bears hidden around this map as well. Moving forward to Mob of the Dead, one of the coolest zombie maps to ever be introduced. At the beginning of the match, if the player stands still and doesn't revive their own character and dies from that time limit, the song Samantha's Lullaby can be heard. If you find the 3 whiskey bottles hidden around this map, the song Rusty Cage by Johnny Cash will play.
If you run down and enter 935 in the little like electroshock machine here, you'll actually get another secret Easter egg song, Where Are We Going?
And then of course this map also had its own main Easter egg objective, Pop Goes the Weasel, which essentially had the mobsters needing to escape from Alcatraz and crafting parts for an airplane. It's part of the whole deep zombie lore that really starts to get intense at this point. I think a lot of zombie fans looked at this map as one of the big turning points for when zombie went lore deep with their maps. Also, PhD Flopper and Mule Kick can be seen on the docks, but once again are available, set there just to taunt the players. The clock above the cafeteria door is set to 1:15, referring to Element 1:15, and when the AK-47 gets pack-a-punched, it turns into Reznov's Revenge, referencing the World at War character Viktor Reznov and his lust for revenge. Going on to Buried, holding down the action button once finding 3 teddy bears will activate another song, Always Running, when getting a bullseye on the dartboard over in the saloon with the ballistic knife. This like piano back here behind the player just starts to play by itself, and it's a little creepy. If the player goes back through the mansion, you can actually see a ghost playing the piano. You then also have the option to tip the ghost, which is something I've never done before, but hey, then the piano can also be played manually by holding the use button. So there's that. Also, inside this ghost mansion, there's several portraits of the real-life scientist Michael Faraday. And then, of course, just like with the other maps, this Zombies map had its own dedicated Easter egg known as Mind Games. Once again, another one you can choose to complete in Maxis or Richtofon's favor. Then we get to Origins, and boy oh boy, was there a lot going on in this map. Of course, there's a song Easter egg hidden here for finding 3 green meteorite fragments. The song's called Archangel, but that's not all. There's also 3 radios that if you hold the action button for 3 seconds will activate a different song called Shepherd of Fire. If you lay down on the numbered panels from Generator 1 and Generator 5, with them needing power, it'll activate the song Ether. Of course, there's a very long main Easter egg associated with Origins for this map called Little Lost Girl. There's a jump scare that will happen if you have a sniper rifle and you zoom in on this burning church.
Then 3 years after Call of Duty Black Ops 2 released in April of 2015, the game received a small update which added a Snapchat icon, like the little QR Snapchat thing, to a couple of images in maps like Plaza and Express. If you scanned the image, it would allow players to add a newly created Call of Duty Snapchat account, which would then reveal little secrets, building up momentum for the announcement of Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Later on, this would be a continuous trend where Call of Duty games would kind of secretly start to reveal the upcoming announcement for the next Call of Duty game, but this was kind of a cool introduction to that. The ante actually continues to get upped as we go into Call of Duty Ghosts, as there are some really unique and interesting Easter eggs you'll find in this game in particularly. On the multiplayer map Showtime, if you look at this poster, it is actually a poster of Retreat, an upcoming map for Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, which is unique because this is essentially a Call of Duty Advanced Warfare Easter egg teasing the next upcoming Call of Duty game all the way back in Ghosts. This is something they started kind of doing back around this time with like Black Ops 2 and Ghosts and whatnot, so it's cool to see these little tie-ins occasionally. On the campaign level Struck Down, there's this like broken trophy case over here that has a bunch of references to a few things like The Legend of Zelda and Doctor Who. If you look here, this kind of looks like the rupee from the Zelda series, and I'm pretty sure the description says most bushes cut and pots smashed, which is like a play on how a lot of people played The Legend of Zelda back in the day. There's a reference to the TARDIS from Doctor Who with a message alluding to the largest interior with the smallest exterior. And then there's like a couple of Easter eggs about the world potentially ending in 2012. I guess Call of Duty Ghosts is the first Call of Duty game to release after the alleged 2012 apocalypse, as Black Ops 2 released right before that was supposed to happen. But it is funny because Ghosts did come out almost an entire year after the world didn't end. But yeah, I guess that's what they're referencing, and it's a little clever. If you pay attention to Ajax during the interrogation scene on the same level, you can actually see him give the middle finger to some Federation soldiers if you continue to watch him for a long period of time. This game also has another Private Ryan that you can go ahead and actually save, though there is no achievement associated with it this time. It is funny that this keeps happening. Also, it's pretty likely to believe that the characters Elias and Rourke are both characters that were inspired by the film Platoon. I mean, Elias's name is ripped right from it, and Rourke's character arc is very, very similar to kind of the story that we see in the movie Platoon. Over on Federation, you can find this random monkey that has a buzzsaw in the trees here. Okay, the multiplayer level Freight actually has a ton of Easter eggs in this multiplayer map. One of the few multiplayer maps that has just an abundance of them. First of all, there's the classic Modern Warfare teddy bear hidden away over in this corner, but there's more going on here. You'll see over here there's a stop sign, literally a hammer, and a clock, which could be, you know, a reference to stop hammer time, like MC Hammer song. Yo, Call of Duty Ghosts was pretty underrated, okay? I mean, look at this. This is awesome. Okay, now across multiple Call of Duty games, but very prominently in Call of Duty Ghosts, there is a brand or a company known as Porter. And you'll see the word Porter pop up in so many different Easter eggs and little things along the way that we gotta get to the bottom of this Easter egg, because you might have seen some Porter Easter eggs already. So we believe all of these Porter Easter eggs, the company, is all based off of a developer, John Porter, who joined Infinity Ward all the way back in 2004. And he was a level designer all the way since the Call of Duty days. And not only can you see Porter branding all over this map, you can see it on beers, and you can find it on other maps across Call of Duty. I mean, he even has this giant sign here. Also, the trains on Freight, believe it or not, are actually the same trains from Modern Warfare 2's Derail. They just have some extra graffiti on them, but if you look, you can still see the 1337 and the little IW sign over on this one. Over on the multiplayer map Warhawk, we have a ton of Easter eggs here as well. A lot of references to different developers and designers. First, there's a random gnome once again hidden away in Call of Duty Ghosts in the driver's seat of this car. This car is inside of a garage belonging to a camper Dave, who also has this other business over on that last map, Freight. We can see his sign here. We weren't 100% positive who Dave is supposed to be. We'd like to think that since it's camper Dave, it's like a little joke at like the Call of Duty playstyle of camping and being a camper, and maybe a little stab at David Vonderhaar, who was like the head of Treyarch, which was kind of the opposite Call of Duty studio, just kind of like a little gentle competitive jab there. But Dave could also be some like designer who worked on these Call of Duties. Call of Duty Ghosts is pretty unique though, because they really went all out with little designer references. You can see this company is known as Devanero, which is the last name of designer Susan Devanero, who worked on Call of Duty Ghosts. She would go on to work on several different Call of Duty titles like Advanced Warfare, Infinite Warfare. We're pretty sure that this business, M.R. Renner, is also based off of a developer, likely Michael Renner. He's a veteran designer at Raven Software and has worked on most Call of Duty releases. Over in the bar section of this map, there's a couple of references to even more developers, probably in these pictures. Also over here on this truck, I was trying to figure out what's going on here because this design looked familiar. This Kurd guy, and as I remembered back, this is the same design from that Modern Warfare 3 pretzel stand we looked at. I believe this is designer Dave Kurd, who worked with Raven Software back in the day on multiple Call of Duty titles, including Modern Warfare 3 and also Ghosts. I found his portfolio online on his own blog, and it looks like he was also the designer of that hot dog on Strike Zone, and he designed the Warhawks logo, which is like the school mascot that shows up on this window over here. Dave Kurd was the art director on quite a few Call of Duty multiplayer maps, so it's pretty cool to kind of get to the bottom of this little mystery that we uncovered. Okay, back to the multiplayer map Warhawk though. There's some other interesting things, like this soda vending machine has a bunch of normal-ish flavors, but a random flavor called Fade. What does a Fade flavor taste like? Also, there's this store called Gina's Jewelry, and unfortunately, when we first looked into this, we couldn't quite figure out who Gina was with just like a first name. We assumed it was a designer or someone, but we couldn't get too much context, but we did come back to this one later and it was kind of interesting. Also, you can see some more Porter signs over here, and if you go out of bounds, you can find this police station that has a "We're Open" sign on it, which I just thought was a little funny. Also on this map, there's this big ice cream face, which looked oddly familiar. I couldn't right away remember where this was from, but I eventually remembered that this ice cream face actually originally showed up in Modern Warfare 3 on one of those developer pictures where they're all on the roller coaster. One dude was riding with the ice cream face, and then years later we see where the ice cream face ended up on Warhawk and Call of Duty Ghosts. On the multiplayer map Strike Zone, man, this map was pretty fun. You can see that there's vendor signs for a Devanero's Gelato, which likely is a reference to Susan Devanero. On this big statue of a baseball player, if you go into spectate mode and fly at the top of it, you can see that the player's name is Renner, which is likely a reference to Michael Renner, who we talked about from the last map. There's some more Porter signage again, and if we go over to the multiplayer map Octane, there's even more references likely to developers like Mike's Coin Laundry. We found out that this closed cafe over here has the name Loman's Cafe, and upon doing some research, we discovered that this is likely a reference to Gina Loman. Remember Gina Jewelry from Warhawk? It probably is the same person. It seems like Loman's been working on Call of Duty games since the Black Ops days, but it seems like she's been working at Raven Softwares for about 26 years or so. Also on the other side of the map, there's a Petrosky's Auto Shop, who we speculate is Will Petrosky, who worked on Call of Duty Ghosts along with Black Ops 3, Advanced Warfare, Modern Warfare Remastered, and others. Anyways, inside the strip club over on this level, there's this sign that randomly says Dead Inside, which we think is a reference to the famous Don't Dead Open Inside sign, but I can only find this one half of the sign. I'd like to believe there's the other half somewhere on this map, but I couldn't find it myself. Okay, then I found this graffiti of Roxbox once again, and I still haven't been able to figure out the origin of Roxbox. I've seen the graffiti pop up in a couple of Modern Warfare titles. Roxbox was there as well. Perhaps this is another mystery still unsolved. Over here, there's some advertisements for something called Spanky and the Wizard, which we believe is a reference to the 1989 film The Wizard. Over on the multiplayer map Unearth, it was that remake of Modern Warfare 3's Dome. If you look at this big excavator, you can see that the company is AU Digger, which is like a reference probably to Gold Digger, or just that phrase. But if you come around to the door side of it, we see here AU Digger Construction, good enough for government work. That's reassuring. Over on Chasm, there's a surprisingly large number of Easter eggs here as well, or just little nuanced details we found. There's this store here that sells chili and donuts. What an odd mix. Inside, you'll find some liquor known as the Seaman's Liquor. There's also this Circus Park clown ad, which is kind of terrifying. This taco store, oddly enough, if you look at the menu itself, has the same menu from the chili and donuts store. What is it with taco stores in the Call of Duty universe just reusing the same exact menus of other restaurants. This is like a Burger Town thing all over again with that taco place. Also, if you have a sniper and you look all the way out in the distance, you can see that this freeway sign is backwards for whatever reason. Over on the DLC map that later became free fall, if you actually fly out of the map and you go down to the very bottom, you can see a bunch of lights and sirens or something. If you get closer, you can see that traffic is absolutely wild in the Call of Duty world. I mean, look at this. The DLC map Fog is actually really cool. This map was like this horror-inspired map, and it has a ton of references to different horror properties. Like, there's the Walking Dead referenced with likely this hat and this trailer, which, I mean, it should really be an RV, but I digress. There's references to Evil Dead. The movie Halloween was a big tie-in. There was even a whole kill streak dedicated to Michael Myers. We found a reference to the movie The Ring. Luke didn't want me to watch the TV for some reason. And there was a picture of a creepy horse. There was quite a few references on this map. It was actually a pretty cool map. There's also a monkey smoking a cigarette. Maybe a reference to The Hangover Part 2? I don't know. And then there was the multiplayer map Bay View, which had quite a few Easter eggs as well on this one. Like, for instance, if you go inside of the cafe, you'll hear Eminem playing on the speakers. The song that they used to promote this game, kind of cool. I never knew Eminem was like a Starbucks type vibe, but hey, why not? Also, some of the things they sell here are kind of interesting, like sugar-coated penguin beans. There's this thing called Sploosh, and they have gummy squids. Also, there's a missing dog, which I hope is just like a developer's dog that they wanted to, you know, hide into the game, which I would respect. Inside of the restaurant, there's a couple of interesting things, like this soda machine that doesn't have soda. Every time you would think you would see a soda drink, it's just called juice. So I think this is strictly a juice dispenser. Also, inside the restaurant, there are a ton of little tiny references to developers, which I assume these are developers, right? That's a good assumption to make. It looks like they're having a pretty good time. And then on the multiplayer map Stormfront, if you look out of bounds at these taxi cabs, there's something a little suspicious perhaps about them. They look oddly familiar. You notice the SHG for maybe Sledgehammer Games. I think these taxi cabs are reused assets from Modern Warfare 3, which Sledgehammer Games worked on. And to further solidify my evidence, the taxi cabs actually say New York City on them, and this multiplayer map supposedly takes place in
San Diego.
So what are they doing here? It's actually probably a really practical reuse of an asset, but I'm just proud of myself for catching this. Also on this multiplayer map, we found these pictures of missing people, which could be designers or developers who worked on this game. And inside of this locker, I found a book called Call of Dog. What is this book? And then over on the multiplayer map Whiteout, if you go inside one of the cabins here, you can see this picture of a bunch of developers who killed a bear? What is going on here? One person has a gun, the other person has an axe. Is that a spear? This guy doesn't even have anything. The more I look at it, the more photoshopped it looks, and I love the fact that they put this in here. Call of Duty Ghosts also released more extinction maps that you were supposed to complete. They mostly did have like a finale to them, so it was more of like a mission rather than like an actual Easter egg experience, but they were still kind of cool additions. I actually really wish they would bring back these alien modes as something different than zombies every once in a while. All right, when it comes to Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, surprisingly, there aren't as many Easter eggs in this game as previous Call of Duty games, but there are still a couple of really unique ones and interesting ones that are worth talking about. If you're on the mission Induction, you can actually see that there's this like text that's scrolling by, and at some point during this screen, you'll see SHG 2009, which is a reference to Sledgehammer Games, and 2009 being the year that the studio opened up. While Sledgehammer Games' first real project was a full force support effort for Modern Warfare 3, the whole year leading up until Modern Warfare 3's development really was in full swing, and Sledgehammer Games had to step in to support Infinity Ward, who had just lost a bunch of members. They were working on their own Call of Duty game that never saw the light of day, codename Fog of War. It would have had some action-adventure elements to it, and would have maybe had some third-person elements to it as well. There's some cool concept art for it, and we didn't know where else to put this in the videos, so we decided to slide it in during Advanced Warfare. On the level Aftermath, if you go inside the reception at the hospital, there's a random ARX-160 just chilling inside this garbage can for whatever reason. I don't know, kind of cool. Also, if you load up on the mission Collapse, when you're on the big bridge here, you can see a tanker that says Sledgehammer on it. Obviously the studio that made this game. If you load up on the multiplayer map Skyrise, which is essentially the Advanced Warfare remake of the Modern Warfare 2 map High Rise, if you go up to the top rooftop where typically a lot of people would like sneak up there and there'd be a bunch of teddy bears as a little Easter egg hiding spot, this time there is something up here that isn't teddy bears. We have a bunch of sledgehammers. That's cool. Also on this map and other maps, there are these cups called Mega Sip cups, which I think are like a little parody version of of the Big Gulp from 7-Eleven. It's just called Mega Sip, which I think is clever. Then over on the multiplayer map, Atlas Gorge, which also is a remake of a Call of Duty 4 map. If you go inside of one of the buildings, there are a bunch of people in these pictures, and I'm pretty sure that these are developers, not just like random stock photos, because this one guy looks like he's wearing an Activision shirt, and that would kind of line up for this. That's like an Activision Sledgehammer employee who worked on the game. So here they are. The multiplayer level quarantine's always been really interesting to me. There's bananas everywhere. There's monkeys that freak out if you even shoot at all. Like they just start screeching. If you look out of bounds, you can see this cargo ship over here, and it says SHG USA on it, which likely a reference to Sledgehammer Games again. Some of you might remember the multiplayer map Sideshow that released. It was like this big clown themed map that was just, I don't know, like something completely different for Advanced Warfare. There's actually quite a few little details and Easter eggs you may have missed though, specifically from this map. Like if you go inside this creepy, weird love suite for clowns or whatever, there's a bunch of money stacks over here. The garbage cans are the same clown garbage cans from Carnival and Modern Warfare 2, but probably one of the coolest Easter eggs on this map are the trucks that are tipped over, or the trucks that have different types of decorations on them, because a lot of these trucks are actually direct references to another video game franchise, Twisted Metal, as pretty much straight up, if you look at these side by side, you could tell that there's like some inspiration drawn, and it's cleverly an homage to that game series. There's also this one picture over here of a dog that kind of reminds me of the Target dog, but it very obviously isn't. It's not the Target dog, but I mean, it's a cool dog. The car wash over here actually has a lot of interesting writing over here that I can't quite figure out. Like there's a voucher for the Clown Inn. Is that like a discount coupon? Do you get a whole hotel night for free if you buy a car wash? Surely that can't work that way. There's also a lot of exclamation marks here on vacuum code. I don't know what that is. This taco truck stand looks to be pretty popular and has a bunch of $1 bills on it. And if you look at the $1 bills closely, we have more clowns. In the backside of the map, there's these interesting signs like warning players of like uranium mining or whatever. Some of these warning signs are pretty clever or interesting to look at, so they are worth mentioning, I guess. And then I swear, I was staring at this television set for a long time, and I swear there's a clown or something in it. I just don't know how to point it out or explain it, but I swear there's like an image of a clown in this television set. I'm not just seeing things, I hope. We then switch over to this map that takes place in Dallas, but in the future, because it's, you know, Advanced Warfare. And there's this weird restaurant that has one of the weirdest menus I've ever seen. You can get something called Diet Barbecue. I don't know what that is, but it might be more appetizing than gross barbecue, whatever that is. Hey, the menu even says that if you get Diet Barbecue, you can push in twice as much than, I guess, normal barbecue. There's also ham paste, if you prefer that route. And then, interestingly enough, over here, we see this ice cream sign, which, if you remember, is that same ice cream sign that we saw in the previous Call of Duty game, Call of Duty Ghosts, and it also originally showed up, obviously, back in Modern Warfare 3 as well. Over on the zombie side of Advanced Warfare, things are a little interesting here, as the game originally did not have a zombies map at launch. It would later come out as DLC, but before they released any DLC zombies, there was one secret zombies teaser Easter egg hidden in the game that you could experience. Essentially, you had to unlock all of the Exo survival maps, and then after that, you would unlock this little miniature bonus zombie game mode where you could run around, fight zombies for a while, and eventually you're expected to evac and escape, and you get a little cutscene thing that kind of hypes you up for the future. This was just the starting point though. This was one of the first times zombies was in a Call of Duty game that wasn't made by Treyarch, and like we planned on doing for this video, we're not going to go as in depth on all of the Easter egg steps for every zombies map. We will go over like the basic existence of each zombie Easter egg kind of. Outbreak was the first zombies map released in the Havoc DLC. Essentially, to complete the zombies Easter egg, there are a lot of steps you have to do, like collect a black box, collect some key cards. Everyone has to have their exo suits. You have to use exo slam all at the same time on this one box, and it can be really annoying because the timing is really hard and everyone has to aim and time it right. Two people have to jump down a trash chute at the same exact time, and then while they're in the trash chute, they have to find a random key card that sometimes doesn't seem to spawn in correctly, and you have to shoot it. Then you have to kill a certain number of zombies to get your clearance level up. Then you have to do some stuff at the exo station, and you can even activate music while you're at it, which is a whole nother Easter egg, where, as with many zombie maps, you have to go find 3 specific hidden objects. But if you do this, you can make your way back to the courtyard, and a helicopter will come to evac you, though things don't necessarily go as planned, and it kind of starts off the whole zombies narrative for Advanced Warfare. The next next map was called Infection, and it was this whole Burger Town themed zombies map, which is kind of an awesome idea, but there was more going on to the map than just that one restaurant. There's quite a few things you have to do. Once again, when we ran this one, there was a couple of attempts made before we actually pulled it off, but you have to do quite a few weird things, like get a golden frying pan filling a room with blood, find some valves that are hidden across the map and they randomly spawn. You had to find randomly spawned slabs of meat, then you had to cook the meat, then you had to actually make a burger, then you had to cleanse the burger, feed the burger to Bubby, the drive-through Burger Town mascot, I guess. You get a battery, you have to charge the battery, then you have to go inside the Burger Town tower itself, which is kind of a little cool secret area. You gotta feed a zombie to an alligator, grab its arm, grab some tablet, then you can launch a rocket, you can activate Bubby, and then Bubby will run around the map and help you. What a weird Easter egg. Also, it was kind of awesome. Advanced Warfare Zombies got even harder when Carrier released, where this time you're on like a boat or something. I don't know, a carrier, I guess would be the right term, not like a boat. This one had quite a few steps. You had to get like teleporter grenades. You have to like time a grenade perfectly. You have to use specific types of grenades or explosives. There's this weird arm that you're supposed to feed weapons to, like it's a last day before quota in Lethal Company. Then you have to find a shovel. Then you have to use a teleporter to reach a secret island, and you have to dig up some treasure or something. There's a shark cage that you have to fill with blood. Then you have to open up this vault by feeding that one weird thing some more weapons. Eventually, you get a C4 and you could beat this one as well. And then the last zombie map was Descent, which is probably the hardest one in Advanced Warfare. It's set in an underwater facility at Atlas. This one has the stereotypical steps that you would see in something like this. You have to activate some terminals, press some hidden buttons. There's just one hard one where you have to chase down these flying drones and destroy them all before time runs out. You gotta link some electric zombies to this generator or something. There's one puzzle where you have to stand completely still, and if you walk, you lose points, and if you hit 0 points, you lose the challenge and you have to try again in the next round. There's a Simon Says game. There's a friendly fire activated round where you have to like not shoot your teammates. There's some more codes. There's some rockets stuff. And then if you do all of that, you essentially have to go and participate in one final boss fight, and this one's actually really, really hard. Like, it's not a walk in the park. There's a lot of stuff going on, but if you can survive it and make it to the end, then you win zombies, I guess. You get the Easter egg and the achievement.
Next, let's go ahead and move on to Black Ops 3, which has a ton of things going on here. On the campaign level Hypo Center, there's a framed Black Ops 2 Easter egg. It's just Black Ops 2 in a frame. Also, when playing in the campaign, sometimes you'll have these pre-text loading screens where text is like scrolling by, and one of the messages will say Dragovich, Kravchenko, Steiner, these men must die, which is a reference to words spoken by Reznov in Call of Duty Black Ops 1. Also, on some screens with scrolling text in areas like the safe house, for example, the line loading boot restart variables all.your.base are belong to us can be found, which is a reference to the game Zero Wing, which had this text in the game but also spawned into a massive meme. Just like in Black Ops 1, at the start of every level there is a mission log protocol code. This one is a little bit different though from what Black Ops 1 says, where the first letter of each word actually spells out "Are we Taylor?" or "We are Taylor," which could be a subtle philosophical question to the ending of the main campaign where we can't figure out if our character is fully merged with Taylor or not. I don't know, Black Ops 3's campaign was very, very deep. Maybe a little too deep for its own good sometimes. On the level Provocation, Marshawn Lynch, who at the time was known for playing on the Seattle Seahawks, makes a cameo in this level, appearing behind Danny Lee and Hendricks, sitting at the table with 54 eye soldiers. The character is not killed and escapes, so that's cool. Also over here we have a cool, clever reference to the 2015 sci-fi film Chappie. Over on the campaign level Rise and Fall, Samantha's teddy bear can actually be seen at the beginning of this level, right over here by the train. On the campaign level Demon Within, the music that plays during the Battle of Bastogne is actually a remix of the main theme music to Call of Duty 3, another title that Treyarch had developed. The Tiger Tank here has the logo of Group 935 from Zombies, once again making a small subtle appearance in the campaign side of things. On the level Lotus, there are several generators around the level, and on their display it says they generate 1.21 GW of power. That couldn't be 1.21 gigawatts of power, being a reference to the film Back to the Future, could it? If so, that's really clever. Shifting gears to the multiplayer side of things, on the multiplayer map Aquarium, the ship from Hijacked in Call of Duty Black Ops 2 can be seen, sadly half sunken in the distance. On the multiplayer map Combine, a blueprint for the wave gun from zombies can be found on this map. On Fringe, there's 3 posters for some older Call of Duty games here. Call of Duty 3, World at War, and Call of Duty Black Ops. And they're all found in this inaccessible room, which makes it even more of a secretive Easter egg. On the map Infection, it's described as taking place in France in the map description. However, this stone structure right here disagrees. It says it's in Foy, Belgium. This part of the map that acts as this really weird and bizarre wall because we're supposed to be in some, like, I don't know, artificial world in a brain or something. This wall, though, is a remake of Call of Duty's famous map Carentan. There's a sign that says Waffen Fabrik der Ries. Seriously, guys, I only expect my pronunciation on a lot of these words to just get worse. Luke, pronounce how you say this.
Waffenfabrik der Riese.
When you translate that from German, though, it means Weapons Factory the Giant, which actually links this multiplayer map to the zombies map Der Riese. In the hotel near the center, there's also a map of Der Riese on the wall, just kind of making all the connections here. On the map Metro, there's actually some Perks-a-Cola drinks here. Over on Stronghold, another photograph of Call of Duty Black Ops 2 can be found in this building, which is just awesome. We're back at Nuketown again, and just like with the last Nuketowns, there's mailboxes in front of the houses, but here we have Hendrix and Corvus, referencing the 2 antagonists of the campaign. Also, if you shoot the heads off the mannequins in Nuketown in a quick enough time, they'll come alive and start attacking you, which is terrifying. There was also another version of this where you could shoot the arms off and you get this creepy Easter egg instead. And there was a change to Nuketown for a little while that added UFOs to it, which was also something kind of unexpected. On the multiplayer map Gauntlet, over in the urban area, there's 2 movie posters from Shadows of Evil, which are Call of Misery and Killers of the Night. Shadows of Evil is the zombies mode that we'll talk about a little bit later. Also, you can see something else from the zombies mode in Black Ops 3, where these labels read DeLuca Shipping Co. established 1849, which is a reference to Sal DeLuca, who's in Shadows of Evil. On Splash, if you look in the far distance, once again, you can see the ship from Hijacked, as well as the ship from the zombies map Shadows of Evil. Also, on this map, near the security station, you can find a Dr. Monty's chocolate bar lying on the computer desk, and this chocolate bar obviously being an inspiration from Dr. Monty's like candy chain or whatever he has in zombies mode for Black Ops 3, but these chocolate bars show up all over the place in Black Ops 3 beyond just this one moment. On the entrance to Atlantis Riptide, there's 4 statues of the Primus characters. There's also this other statue of Richtofen over by this fountain, which is located outside of the map. On the map Knockout, there's a teddy bear that's found inside of this drawer. Also, there's this cool disco room on this map, and the song Disco of the Dead from the Zombies map plays here. You can see the outfit from Kill Bill on display here. On the multiplayer map Rumble, if you go to the Hall of Fame room, you can hear another Zombies song from Black Ops 2 playing through the speaker. On the multiplayer map Micro, the one where you're supposed to be like really small in this like big area, you can see Dr. Monty's cream soda, and it actually says there's nothing in this beverage that's any good for you, so you might as well not drink it. It's like good advertising technique if you ask me. There's also some pretty clever little jokes on some of the ingredients and nutritional facts on various things you can see on this level, but it is also noting that the pizza boxes have a warning that they are definitely not eco-friendly. On the map Spire, there's these display boards that have various flights on them, which all seem to have been canceled, but what's interesting is some of the flights were to Nowhere and El Dorado. Also, there's a juice menu here, and some of the juice names are interesting. Like, for instance, you can get the Surely It Can't Get More Juicy drink, or the Yes, It Gets More Juicy drink. Over on the multiplayer map Berserk, there's just 2 flying dragons vibing out there. On Citadel, there's a large snake which can be seen swimming. You can't kill it, but it is harmless. But still, I don't know why there's a giant snake in here. Also on this map, certain trees around the area seem to have these creepy faces in them, and they actually move. Apparently, you can even hear some deep ghostly voice sounds. This is what we heard. Over on the map Outlaw, there's actually a ton of tiny references to Back to the Future, like what time is on the clock, and a flux capacitor. Let's go into Black Ops 3's Zombies mode, starting with Shadows of Evil, which had its main Easter egg called Apocalypse Averted, where apparently we had to go attempt to resolve the crimes of the main characters, and there's like this mysterious man in the shadows, and there's like interdimensional evil, and a bunch of references to like Lovecraftian lore. There's other interesting little secrets though, hidden away besides the main Easter egg. Like in the mystery box, there's a face hugger inside the right slime ball thing, a reference to the Alien movies. There's a jump scare on this map also, where if you have a sniper rifle and you look at these buildings over here near the docks, just boom, here you go. There's a new song called Snakeskin Boots, and it can be activated by finding 3 wooden radios around the map. And then there's also another song, Cold Hard Cash, that can be activated by finding 3 parts of a microphone and interacting with the stage. This map can also be turned into black and white by shooting a picture frame behind the boxing ring and then interacting with it. Over in the subway, you can see a map of Alcatraz from Mob of the Dead. You can also find a map of the excavation site from Origins over on the table next to the rift door in the waterfront district. Apparently there's also a stuffed monkey here. If you shoot the Shadow Man in the beginning of the match, players are able to skip ahead in the game, either going straight to round 5 all the way up to round 15. But it can only be done on solo, private, or local matches, so I guess you can't do it with your buddies online. The Ruby Rabbit Lounge is the name of this lounge over here, but it's likely a reference to the club from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where Jessica Rabbit danced in that movie. Over by the waterfront district, if you look at the end of the dock, you can actually see this light post where there's a green light. It's likely a reference to The Great Gatsby. And then over in the boxing gym, these pictures here are likely Treyarch developers. Next, let's look at Der Eisendrache. This time around, there's an entire Easter egg quest line for the achievement My Brother's Keeper, where the Primus group assaults the Group 935 facility in Austria. There's some cool Easter eggs hidden on this one as well, though, like shooting 3 skulls with the in plain sight gobblegum activated will actually turn all the zombies into skeletons, and that's neat. There's of course the stereotypical Easter eggs you would find on any map, like hidden music, and then obviously the long quest line, and this map always just looked really cool. On Zetsubu no Shima, this one has its own storyline quest line called Seeds of Doubt, but there are some other hidden things, like a musical Easter egg that can be activated by filling these melody bulbs near the purple water. Also, near this green water, there's apparently a strange creature that can be seen walking in the distance, but only after you reach round 50. Also, if you use a scoped rifle and aim at the test tubes in the bunker, a player can actually get a jump scare in a really odd and creepy way, where a doppelganger of one of the 4 characters will be standing there, and then boom, jump scare. Then we look to Gorod Covey, where there's another Easter egg plot line quest line. It's based around Nikolai and like securing his soul within the Battle of Stalingrad or something. But on this map, there's 3 musical Easter eggs with 4 different possible ways of activating them. The first one is Dead Ended. You just have to find 3 vodka bottles, which sounds fitting for Nikolai. There's a re-recorded version of Ace of Spades by Motorhead. You just have to find 3 literal Ace of Spades cards around the map. This one could also be activated during the boss fight by shooting 3 telephone poles. Then there's also a hide and seek game that you can play where you have to throw monkey bombs into different areas and set them on fire by the dragons. This one's a little more convoluted than the rest of the songs, but if you do it and you go through the process of it, you unlock Samantha's Sorrow to play. Also, in the spawn area of this map, there's a street sign here named Richard Rodriguez. If you ever wonder why that's there, this was actually the name of the winner of the Call of Duty Black Ops 3 Be a Zombie contest, which was held between Activision and Treyarch in collaboration with Omaze. Hey, the dude won and got his name in the game. What more could he ask for? Okay, then on Revelations, there's 2 Easter eggs. One of them is the For the Good of All, which involves opening the summoning key and completing the cycle. But also, if you've done all the previous Easter eggs, you get another quest for something called A Better Tomorrow. It's really cool how deep the Easter eggs go here, but for brevity, we just don't want to spend all of our time on this video just going into every nitty-gritty step of every zombies map. Maybe a future video though. But hey, you find 3 teddy bears and you can activate a song called The Gift, and that's great for like simple-minded zombie players like me. Also, you may or may not have noticed on Revelations, there's some references to the older zombies maps in each location, like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I don't know if I'm the only person to ever notice this. After Revelations, we later would see the release of Zombie Chronicles, which brought back a ton of classic zombie maps from World at War, Black Ops 1, and Black Ops 2. A lot of these added a couple of new Easter eggs that weren't in the original versions of the game. Like on Verrucht, if you throw an explosive at the statue in the middle of the courtyard, it'll start throwing up blood. They also updated the song Easter egg into this longer Easter egg that involves flushing multiple toilets, and then you do this hide and seek game with Samantha where you have to shoot these dolls. That actually becomes a trend in a lot of the Zombie Chronicles maps with the hide and seek doll game. Like on the original Zombies map, Knockdown Toten, there's now 4 hidden buttons that you activate, and and then you play some more hide and seek with dolls, but you get another song here. Moon also has a hide and seek doll hunt for another secret song, but they added this whole other Easter egg that was a better bonus where you can go and do all these little tasks for a dog, even collect zombie souls for dog bowls, and eventually you can spawn in a space dog, which is pretty cool. There's also a hide and seek Easter egg for music on Ascension, but it's a little bit harder to activate than some of the other ones. You have to throw a Gersh device near a Samantha doll to activate it, and then you do the whole hide and seek Easter egg. But also on Ascension, there's this really creepy Easter egg where you can see the Shadow Man way in the distance in the tower just watching. I don't know why. This one is just like, hey, what's going on? Okay, then Shinonuma also has new music and a Samantha doll Easter egg as well. For Origins, you can also get a hidden song if you find the 3 green element 115s, and you get the song Archangel. You also can find 3 red radios for the song Shepherd of Fire. Also on Origins, when you're doing the whole thing to build the 4 staffs, there is another Easter egg that ultimately has you playing hide and seek with those dolls again to get another music Easter egg. And there's papers with staff names written on them in the craters of Origins as well. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, if you thought Call of Duty Ghosts or any of these other Call of Duty games had a lot of Easter eggs, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, the next Infinity Ward game since Ghosts, takes things above and beyond with the little details hidden across all of the multiplayer maps, and we spent a lot of time going through these ones, and they're actually pretty cool, so I'm excited to look at them. Firstly, if you go back to Terminal that was remade for Infinite Warfare, you'll see that where Burger Town was, they changed it into a sushi shop. Now on the menu, it looks like a lot of the sushi items are probably the names of various developers who worked on Call of Duty, but the very last item mentions Fish AI, which is a weird thing, but it's actually a meme on themselves from back in the Call of Duty Ghosts days when they first revealed Call of Duty Ghosts. There was a little section behind the scenes where they talked about the fish AI of Ghosts, and I don't know, it was just kind of a meme in the Call of Duty community. Listen to them explain it.
And also added an AI system to it, so we have fish move out of the way when you get close to them.
So with people memeing on fish AI being a core feature of Call of Duty Ghosts, when it was time for Infinite Warfare to come around, they decided to make a little homage to it by having it as a menu item description. On the multiplayer map Retaliation, if you go over to the gravestones here, you can see very fadedly there are different names on them, and we went through some of the names that were a little bit easier to read, and we did find that a lot of these names matched up with people who worked on Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, so it's another little dev Easter egg. This is for all of Infinite Warfare, but we noticed it on Precinct first. But if you go to the candy displays here, you'll see that some of the candy's been mixed up. We don't have sweet and sexies anymore. Now we have sweet and chewy, but they still have the candy called crust, which sounds pretty gross. Also, we found this sign on what you're not supposed to do on a train. Like, you gotta be joking me. I don't know, I love this. I think this is a cool little sign. You shouldn't do this on a train. And then also in the Infinite Warfare universe, they have Infinite World News, which is a play on, Infinity Ward and maybe Infinite Warfare. If you load up on the multiplayer map Throwback, you'll notice you're kind of on this giant Halo looking ring, which is actually a reference to a long dead video game franchise known as Halo that was popular in the 2000s. It's pretty dead nowadays, but back in the day, this game was really popular and fun. This map though actually has quite a few Easter eggs hidden in it. Like you can find Ronnie the hot dog, which was the hot dog from Call of Duty Ghosts Strike Zone and the campaign. The name of the little town in this museum area is called Addisonville, which is likely named after Addison DeBold, who was one of the developers at Infinity Ward at the time. I was so excited to see this ice cream logo again show up in this game as well, with it just continuously coming back time and time again over the years. Over here, we found these cups, which I believe look like they're from Zombies in Spaceland from Infinite Warfare Zombies. Also, if you look at the movies that are showing, they are both references to Star Wars, with kind of being a play on the prequel movie names. The pastor of the church in this town is named Kevin Long, another developer at Infinity Ward, and Luke and I were terrified to find that the vending machines here have ketchup and mustard pre-applied on their hot dogs, which are just kind of like opened in here. This is not okay. Going back to Terminal, we did notice that there is some text, and this text does show up in a couple of different places that says MW4B, What is this? Is this like a little reference to the Modern Warfare 4 that never happened? Like Infinite Warfare being the 4th game in the Modern Warfare timeline, which it is? Or is this just nothing? I don't know. On the multiplayer map Frontier, we found a teddy bear here in the bunk. On the multiplayer map Noir, we found this graffiti saying Land of the Bereaved and Home of the Enslaved, which is actually a graffiti line that's pulled from Call of Duty Ghosts, because we also saw that popped up in Call of Duty Ghosts when we were running around these maps getting footage. We found this graffiti piece, which is likely a reference to the monkey bomb from the Call of Duty Zombies series, or it could just be a symbol monkey, I don't know. There's also in this graffiti a RIP Josh 2001-2014. We don't know who Josh is. May he rest in peace. Pretty cool way to pay some respect though. Hide them in a video game. On the other hand, we found something a little odd. We found a floating coffee cup where if you throw items at it, they will stick to it. Also, we found a Club Naranjo, which is likely a reference to possibly Miguel Naranjo, who worked on Call of Duty Infinite Warfare along with some other Call of Duty games as a part of the quality assurance team. If we move over to the multiplayer map archive, we actually see that all of the art pieces that are here have little names on them, and pretty much every name we checked did pull up as a person who worked on Call of Duty Infinite Warfare in some way or another. Also, the whole museum is named after Steve Najera, who also was a developer at Infinity Ward. And we also saw another reference to Spaceland Zombies in a logo here over on this clipboard. It looks like an email, but we couldn't make out what the email actually said. Okay, then we went and we loaded up on the Rust remake, which honestly, it's a pretty visually cool remake for Rust, even if the proportions are weird with the advanced movement. But I gotta give them credit. Paul Haley, who likely was the lead developer on this specific map, had a lot of fun remaking this map because he literally named the building after himself. He put statues of himself all over the place, which I think is kind of funny. There's even this giant statue of just his head, all in gold, and there's this illustration of him also. He knew that this was his one shot to put himself in Call of Duty, and he definitely took it and made use of it. And I think it's funny. I think I would do the same thing if I was put in charge of remaking a classic Call of Duty map. Also, we flew way out of bounds on this map to go explore the city a bit, and we found this building with the name Stoll on it, and I believe that this is a reference to David Stoll, but this could just be like a leftover asset that was used on this building way out of bounds that people probably wouldn't be expected to see. It's pretty low resolution also. Over on the multiplayer map 4, we found a leaderboard that has a ton of dev names on it here. This guy got 3 hole-in-ones in a row, which is pretty impressive. We found another interesting drink cup. This time it's a Super Chug from Burger Town, and there's a little arcade section that has a couple of interesting Activision titles here. Once again, just kind of paying homage to Activision's old days being a retro game developer. We didn't see too much on the multiplayer map Permafrost until we came across this. Roxbots Autobody? Once again, Roxbots, whoever this person is, shows up in another Call of Duty game, and we still haven't been able to figure out what this is, who this is, and what this is a reference to. I think it's a developer. I haven't figured it out yet. Someone please let me know. Here it is once again. Okay, then we loaded up on Bermuda, and you know what? We didn't think there was too much going on in this map until we found a teddy bear here, and we're like, oh look, a teddy bear. Then we found another teddy bear over in here, and we're like, look, that's another one. Then there was this third teddy bear that was outside that had a pot on his head that you could shoot off. What is going on here? So I don't know why. I came up with this crazy conspiracy theory that since we found 3 teddy bears already, there has to be more. And I had convinced myself, maybe not Luke, that there was at least 7 teddy bears hidden away on this map. And Luke didn't think there was any more. He thought maybe there was just the 3 and that was it. And I continued to search on that map with Luke for about an hour. We just ran around and I looked everywhere that I could. We flew around, we went inside, outside, on top of things. We tried to get into rooms we couldn't get into. And just as we were about to call it quits, I looked over by these porta potties, and inside one of the porta potties, a 4th teddy bear. I was convinced there has to be more teddy bears, but we also had to go get more footage. So we ended up getting more recordings for this, and later that night after Luke went to bed, I got back on Call of Duty Infinite Warfare secretly and continued my search to see if I could find another teddy bear. And I searched for a really long time, and I could not find any until over here past this fence here, there's a 5th teddy bear. Now I'll be honest, that's all I ended up finding for the night. I did look a while longer and I couldn't find any more. I'm still convinced there might be 7 teddy bears on this map because I randomly just assumed the number 7, or there could just be 5. But But nonetheless, if you're ever bored and you have this map from Infinite Warfare, take a look. See if you can find the secret 6th and 7th teddy bear that may or may not actually exist. We did later on go and load up on Heartland, which is a remake of Warhawk from Call of Duty Ghosts, but things were really not as detailed as they were in Ghosts. Ghost was cool because they had all these little Easter eggs and references, and this map didn't really have that much. I mean, look how they ruined and massacred our ice cream friend. He looks so much worse now. Over on the multiplayer map Depot, we found a Dunford sign, which is a reference to another developer. Then we loaded up on Carnage, and we found this fire button that shoots fire out, and if you die, you get turned into a skeleton, which is pretty cool. It's probably not an Easter egg, but it's something. There's also this chair that looks like Game of Thrones for electricians, maybe. There was some more porter beer, which we found interesting, and we found a teddy that was wrapped up in like skeleton bones. There was also another teddy that we found over here, but we weren't about to start this whole Easter egg hunt looking for every teddy bear on another map. Then we flew out of bounds in spectate mode for some odd reason, and we found this secret island over here across the way with like a cool little like walkway and this big area, and it's called Isle of Kyle. I don't know who Kyle was, but the fact that he gets this whole isle is really, really cool. And I love secret buildings like this. He even has a cool hot air balloon or something, so I'm jealous of whoever Kyle is. All right, we got a lot of the zombies covered already, so let's just like go through Infinite Warfare zombies real quick as well. Zombies in Spaceland has a little Easter egg, the Soul Key achievement. You have to collect pieces of a device for Hasselhoff. You have to look at a UFO and memorize colors. You have to run around and apparently look for an earthquake and then defend this device. Then you have to do like all this ritual type stuff around a pack-a-punch machine. There's some Simon Says. Then you have to fight an alien. Then you have to fight a UFO, all while interacting with these different lights, but along the way it should help you with your pack-a-punch machine, and a lot of this takes place during pack-a-punch. But if you do all the lights correctly, you should destroy the UFO, a soul key will spawn in, and you will have completed this first Easter egg. The next map released was Rave in the Redwoods, where you have to do stuff like build a boat, find a secret picture. You gotta start this whole ritual where you shoot zombies to take their souls, by only shooting them in the arm though. This dude tries to murder you, you have to stop him. Then you have to take some pictures, and then you have to make some crawlers. Then another dude tries to kill you. You go and you find a skull, you bring the skull back to the white-tailed deer docks and place it down to start another ritual. You have to kill zombies by getting headshots this time around. Then you have to ride the boat for a little while. Then this dude, Kevin, who's been kind of like a homie this whole time, turns into like a super slasher dude who tries to kill you, and you have to then kill him. Then you have to fill these skulls with the orbs of zombie souls or something like that. Then you have to stand in this circle for a pretty long time and survive as long as you can, and if you can do those steps enough times, you eventually get this Easter egg completed. Next, we make our way to Shaolin Shuffle, the next DLC released, and there's a lot of different strategies you can take to approach this one. Essentially, the Easter egg becomes enabled or eligible to be enabled after you reach Scene 5 and open up the entire map and Pack-a-Punch. That in itself is almost confusing, but ultimately, we have to unlock our chi, so we're gonna have to talk to this character named Pam and find these rats that are around the map. There's 9 of them. You have to then go free or liberate a bunch of rats and follow them around. Then eventually the circle spawns in. Then you have to kill zombies while you're in the circle. Then a bunch of random ninjas will appear and you have to fight them. They'll drop a key that then lets you open up a locker. Then you have to find Chinese symbols around the map and you have to shoot them. Then we have to go and face off against a rat king. Great. If you take too long to kill him, more ninjas will spawn in. Then you have to find some more symbols, and there's a bunch of different locations that the symbols could end up being in. There's some good old Morse code you have to solve, some posters you have to find. You have to then blow up this wall with a grenade. Then you have to find a letter that spells out a certain phrase with like a code. You gotta find some more symbols, you have to kill another Rat King, and yeah, who would have thought this Zombies map would be so confusing? But yeah, this is like the bare bones version of it. Alright, next up was Attack of the Radioactive Thing. You wanna do the basics that you would normally have to do, like activate the power, and you'll also have to build a zombie body. Each piece will have to be placed on a table within the spawn over here. Of course, there's different individual steps for getting each part of the body that you have to go through, doing things like getting an arm from a fire pit or finding a leg somewhere. Then you have to go and get a special device known as the Scantron and put it into a machine. Then you have to figure out what a random number generator is, and it's like between 5 potential numbers in any order. You gotta find parts for a nuke, chemistry in a gas station. Then you have to complete a potential creation of a formula and and there is a guide on how to make the specific formula. Then you have to activate this huge chemical reaction, and you have to hold out as long as you can while radioactive stuff is going down. I'm not even sure what's going on at this point, but this eventually leads to the big finale where you just have to survive and do things correctly, and ultimately you beat this one as well. Then lastly, to wrap up Infinite Warfare, there's the Beast from Beyond, which is interesting because not only are there zombies in this one, but there's also those like aliens from Call of Duty Ghosts, like the whole extinction mode that never ended up being as popular as zombies, but they brought them back and had them alongside zombies. Essentially, early on, your goal is to reinstall N31L's head so that you can then start getting actual zombies instead of just the extinction enemies. But to beat this one, you have to find some floppy disks. As you continue through this one, a lot of different types of events will happen where essentially these skulls have fulfillment rules to them. If you actually complete the little rule sets of things that you have to do, you can make more progress. You shoot this colored cube and then bada bing, bada boom, you're done with this Easter egg as well in the most condensed, high-speed version of explaining it that I could do. When it comes to Call of Duty World War II, surprisingly, despite how much time we spent looking, there really aren't that many Easter eggs across the board. There are some, just not nearly as many as other Call of Duty games. The ones that did make their way to Call of Duty World War II are kind of neat though, so they're definitely worth looking at, but yeah, we're just surprised with how few there were comparatively. First, there's a dialogue line, which is a reference to the It crowd.
Did you see that ludicrous display last night? What were the Jerrys thinking?
Then many of you may have noticed this when playing Call of Duty World War II yourselves, but you might have seen this graffiti places that says Kilroy was here. This surprisingly has a much more complex origin, but this was like graffiti slash a meme dating all the way back to like the World War II times. Literally the first line of Wikipedia says Kilroy was here is a meme that became popular during World War II, which is just funny to think memes. It's even speculated that during World War II, that one German dictator leader guy, I can't remember his name, found the phrase on captured American equipment, which led him to believe that Kilroy could be a code name for some ally spy. And this was just like a thing that a lot of people wrote during World War II. It was just like a meme, like a picture that you would just see randomly written in chalk in different places or in graffiti. And throughout Call of Duty World War II, you can find Kilroy was here in a lot of different places. This meme has continued on over the years and has even shown up in other games like Halo 3 on the multiplayer map Valhalla. One day of the year, it'll say Kilroy was here on the wall. So yeah, just something a little bit unique and a little historical context to go with it. If you equip the baseball bat when you're playing Call of Duty World War II, you'll notice it says Sledgehammer Games on the bat itself. During the campaign, there's a random Marine who will have some Saving Private Ryan dialogue that lines up with the actual movie. Here's a clip of that.
Put me within a mile of Mr. Party's over, chance we're all going home.
Also, Call of Duty World War II was interesting. They had this whole like headquarters area where you could like run around and like open loot boxes or something, but you could climb up on top of this bunker by doing some careful parkour by jumping on this little like post of a tower, then jumping across and making your way up. And if you make your way to the top, you can find a bunch of sledgehammers. Once again, another reference to Sledgehammer Games. And you can also find a secret volleyball up here as well. Okay, by the time we get to Call of Duty World War II, the zombies mode in this game kind of shifted more from the secret Easter eggs to more of just like a quest line that's expected to be done in zombies. I think the community mostly still called them Easter eggs at this point, even though that's not really what they are. They're just like the quest lines that are expected to be completed. Let's just like look over the main ones real quick. The first map is the Final Reich. There were two versions of the quest, a hardcore version and then like a normal, more casual version where you have to like get a hilt of Frederick Barbarossa's sword. There's a hardcore version where you also save the character Klaus Fischer. You get to do some stuff like craft a Tesla gun, which is kind of fun. You get to activate a lightning rod. You have to look at different numbers by checking out some paintings. Then there's like this big epic boss fight, which is kind of cool. A little challenging, but still really cool to have this Easter egg, which was actually not as hard as any of the other Easter eggs, but still very immersive and kind of a cool experience. The harder version makes you have to like do some stuff with some keepsakes. You have to turn them in a certain direction based on color coding and color corresponding, things colorblind people probably don't like to have to do. But ultimately the goal is to upgrade your Tesla gun, and essentially this time around you can revive that character Walter Klaus. The next map was The Darkest Shore, which had this Easter egg where essentially you had to escape Heligoland. This one's pretty cool. You get to use a saw gun. You have to do stuff like harvest zombie spines, and you have to use a head on a corpse gate. There's a couple of really hard encounters in this one. There's like a boss fight. There's like anti-artillery weapons you have to use. You have to find some hidden skulls like it's a Halo campaign level. You get to participate in a sacrifice ritual. There's a big old final boss fight on this beach here, and you have to fight against hordes of zombies. There's something called spider zombies. It's a whole thing. Yeah, kind of interesting. Then we have the Shadowed Throne, not to be confused with the Shattered Throne from Destiny. This time around, we get to unlock a Wonder Bus. We get to use this cool axe and kill whatever you want to call this thing. Luke, what's the pronunciation of this? It's like Stadtjager. This one's interesting. You have to memorize some letters for like a secret code. You also have to memorize part of a map, then match your letters to a number, and you have to set your radio frequency accordingly. You have to do some interesting things like an alert this airship. You have to get all these parts to build a Wonder Bus, which involves you finding things like a Wonder Bolt or a Wonder Battery. This lets you charge anchors on the map. Then you have to go and get 3 other weapons: the Smuggler's Bat, the Dancer's Dagger, and this axe. You have to do these steps to charge the weapons. Then you get to translate some good old Morse code. You then have to go and interact with these Raven statues, which, mind you, might also be a little like side reference to Ravensoft. But ultimately, you make your way inside the airship, you fight this really hard boss, and you complete this one as well. Next up is the Tortured Path, and this one has a lot of steps similar to other ones we've seen before. Like you have to find zombie parts, like a head, torso, some arms, some legs. You have to do some weird stuff where you melee this thing that makes your FOV change so it feels like you're experiencing Call of Duty from the eyes of a Ring doorbell. You then have to find some flopping fish for whatever reason, and then you have to defend and feed some fish. Eventually you get rewarded with the pommel. There's some heavy fighting and a little boss fight you have to do. Then you pivot over to another area. You have to do a couple of things here. You have to light some ritual stuff, do some stuff with these runes. You can then assemble a sword after you enter 3 rune codes. You have to fight against this guardian thing. But yeah, ultimately this one was kind of interesting. It was like 3 separate maps, all with their own little miniature Easter egg, and you just kind of could do them. But yeah, it was a different approach for sure. And then lastly, there's the Frozen Dawn Easter egg, which is one of the more confusing Easter eggs in Call of Duty World War II. There's just a lot going on here. This involves multiple steps where you have to acquire and upgrade a Thulian hammer. There's stone tablets you have to find. There's like these complicated lightning puzzles you have to solve. That's just like one of the steps. Essentially, every player has to go and kind of split up and do their own Easter eggs separately before everyone comes together. So someone else has to go and do all these steps to get the Thulian shield. Someone else has to get the Thulian scythe. There's a Thulian flail. Everyone has to go do all the stuff. They upgrade them, and everyone has to come back, reconvene, put all of the wonder weapons into these pedestals. You have to fight some God King boss. And yeah, I think this one is one of the few zombie maps that has one of the lower completion maps just because of how challenging this was, because you had to coordinate so much with your team. And it wasn't like Origins where there were different roles, but the steps are mostly straightforward. This is a little more involved.
Okay, now let's go ahead and look at Call of Duty Black Ops 4. Now, one thing that's interesting about Black Ops 4 is this time around, we actually don't have a campaign. We got the first ever Battle Royale mode known as Blackout, and it was apparently developed in just 9 months. And it seemed like the full campaign team had to scrap the campaign and pivot over to working on this project. Probably a colossal effort, but even with that being said, a lot of the biggest references and secrets on Blackout are mostly just locations that were brought back and expanded upon from previous Black Ops titles, but there was a couple of things hidden away in Blackout that were worth looking at. Like for instance, Nuketown was now Nuketown Island, which was a lot bigger than before, and there was this connected underground bunker situation going on, which was really cool. There were some iconic locations like Raid and the firing range and Asylum from World at War and Zombies, and the secret toilet flushing thing still works here, which was awesome. Later on, they would bring Hijacked, which was Hijacked, exactly, pretty much. Okay, and then while we were trying to find some other Easter eggs on this, we had some jerk on our team trying to make it difficult for us to travel. Like, why, dude? While we were exploring, though, we did find some other interesting locations, like Standoff. There was the diner from Transit over here, and also this section, I think, is Cargo from Black Ops 2, right? There also was the Blightfather boss fight, which would happen every now and again over by the Asylum near the graveyard. Blackout also had a ton of references to 115, like we're over at the factory, the days since the last incident was 115. But still, I think the coolest area definitely was Nuketown. Like, going through those underground areas were cool. The radio under here will actually play music from the Black Ops 2 map Transit. Also, under Nuketown, there's this Wolf King painting, which is a reference to Der Eisendrache, as the whole Easter egg involves, like, the King Wolf. Back on that asylum, there's a teddy bear up here, which is a cool nod to zombies, and there's a few secret audio messages tied to the challenges found in the Blackout game itself for doing things like unlocking characters, and those are cool too, but a little bit of a weird way to unlock characters. Okay, over on the multiplayer side of things, the multiplayer map Contraband has a reference to the movie Castaway, and it can be seen in the bed in this like wood cabin thing. We see a soccer ball with a bloody handprint on it, and we all know immediately that it's our boy Wilson all these years later. There's also some chalk drawn messages scattered around the map that kind of have this weird and odd backstory associated with it. I don't know, I always thought that these things are kind of spooky. On Hacienda, there's an anchored corpse actually in the water area near the end of the map. There's also a duck floating near this boathouse, so you know we have equal stakes here. There's also these little pads that you can interact with, and it'll end up activating the center fountain water show and a rotating car display and the secret safe room. Kind of cool to see the little interaction with stuff here. Beneath the torture and vault room, there is actually a habitat for a chained tiger, and it can be seen roaming around down here, but you can't like shoot it or kill it or anything. Outside of the map in the backyard, you can also see a peacock, and it also walks around and is invincible. You can see Caesar and Leda and these statues here, and there's pictures of other maps from Call of Duty history, like Hijacked, for example. And once again, there's some more photos of possibly developers on the wall here. If you look through the window on this level, you can also see a bat with barbed wire wrapped around it, maybe a reference to Negan from The Walking Dead. Kind of a clever little nod hidden away in here. On the multiplayer map Morocco, we found Dr. Monty's candy bar here, and of course, once again, this pops up all over the place throughout the later Black Ops games. On the multiplayer map Gridlock, you can actually see a poster referencing Super Sentai, and then obviously over here we have this giant Godzilla poster, which is pretty awesome. Also on the multiplayer map Arsenal, we see a bunch of pictures here, and it's likely that these are developers or photos of family members that developers wanted to include in this map. Look at Nuketown. This time it was a Russian Nuketown and it had snow, but once again, if you shot the heads off the mannequins at the beginning of the game, a rocket would come up and then we would get the zombie mannequin mode that was terrifying again. Later on in the multiplayer map Casino, there's literally a slot machine called Pack-a-Punch, and they even have a hallway featuring a mural of the Blackout map of all locations. And then Black Ops 4 did something interesting. They did a zombies-inspired multiplayer map based on Der Eisendrache. There's a lot of Easter eggs and references to zombies all over the place, besides the fact you can even hear the Primus characters through the radio by the gondola control panel.
You have sharp eyes, Richthofen. Keep them open.
There's zombies around the map. There's a teddy bear that can be seen knocking behind the window of this toy store, which is terrifying. There's also a giant robot body, similar to the giant robot stuff from Zombies. And it's just kind of cool, all of the little nods here for something that's not a zombies-centric map. Over on Remnant, several zombies can be seen here as well in different parts of the map, and you can actually kill them. There's also an interactable audio tour that the player can listen to in the museum area. You can even see an alligator in the water back here swimming in the distance. And there's a big reference to the Primus characters over here on this mural. Okay, then the multiplayer map Lair has some interesting things. There's a shark that will swim in the water areas for a little while. Some of these signs actually have pretty funny descriptors to them, and you can actually see the shadow of the, what we're guessing is Arcadius boss, with a monkey over here in the control room. Okay, let's look at some of the zombies maps that were in Black Ops 4 and just kind of pick out the main things that were interesting. I know not too many people were fans of the Chaos maps that introduced 9, for example, which was like kind of an out there idea, but I think the gameplay was fun enough, just maybe not the story around it. Voyage of Despair was interesting. This one was on obviously an abandoned Titanic ship, and there's like this whole Easter egg quest line where you have to cleanse the Sentinel artifact, but this one was also non-canon. Then there was Blood of the Dead, which was a Mob of the Dead remake, where you have the Primus crew this time trying to escape Alcatraz through that Easter egg. There was also a song Easter egg for Where Are We Going, and you have to use a spectral shield to blast the input numbers Here's 115. There was the map Classified, which is a remake of 5 from the original Call of Duty Black Ops Zombies. And there was a hidden song in here called Shockwave, which could be activated by finding 3 bottles of vodka hidden around the map. Also, a little interesting thing here is, as this map was canon and part of the main Zombies timeline, there was this blacked out portrait of Primus Nikolai, and now his face will appear after knifing all of the crooked presidential portraits in the offices. This also causes the Richtofen portrait to fade to black. Then we had another main zombie line storyline called The Dead of Night, and there was a main quest line once again with this one, which was called Trial by Ordeal. And you had to do like 3 different quest lines, and you have to try to escape the mansion. But there are some cool things they hid in here, like in the billiards room, you can shoot some pool balls here. If you do it in order from 1 to 9, you get 500 points. But if you do it onto the left side of the pool table, a bookcase will open up and reveal an SG-12 sword flay elixir or a random power-up. There's also an Easter egg in the wine cellar room where there's these barrels that are dripping wine at different speeds, and if you go in order, hitting them from fastest to slowest, a cabinet will move out of the way and give the player either silver bullets or 500 points. Okay, then there's Ancient Evil, and there's an Easter egg here as well, and what is going on here? There's this character named Perseus. He was in that 9 map we talked about earlier. He's apparently the son of Zeus. He shows up at one point. He's angry. I don't ever understand what's going on with the Chaos Zombies Easter eggs. Then there was Alpha Omega, and this was a big Easter egg, as once again, we're at the Nuketown location for another Black Ops game. But this Easter egg is interesting because it has the Primus and Ultimus teams working together to enact the plan of Primus Nikolai. There's an Easter egg song hidden here called I Am the Well. You have to find 3 atom heads in different parts of the map. If you shoot off all of the atom heads around the map, it'll actually cause the next round to consist only of atoms. And if you survive that, the player will be given a free perk. And then if you knife all of the atom heads around the map with the Galva Knuckles, there will be another atom that spawns next to the Pack-a-Punch machine, and if you aim at it, it'll give you a jump scare of the atom head. Great. There's also another atom just kind of located in the desert way back here behind the greenhouse, and if you aim at this one with the sniper rifle, you get another jump scare. Alright, next up, Tag der Toten. This time around, we're following the Victus crew. They have to assemble an Agarthan device, you know, just to solve the paradox of the multiverse and resolve the duality between the Keepers and the Apothicons. Simple Easter egg to explain. Besides the main story Easter eggs, there are some other little ones that are cool too. There's an Easter egg for a secret instrumental song titled A Light from the Shore. You can activate this one by interacting with 3 weapons that are references and featured in the original map that this map's based on. There are 2 different jump scares that'll get you here. One that'll trigger at the forecastle when looking at this paper, and there's also the Hermit jump scare when looking at the light of the lighthouse with a sniper scope. There's a cool Easter egg here at the lighthouse station where you can interact with a pair of glasses and players will be given 500 points, but these glasses are a tribute to George A. Romero, who was the director and essentially the creator of the original modern day zombies in the way that we see them. He did the original Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Another Night of the Living Dead, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, Survival of the Dead, O.J. Simpson, Juice on the Loose, and of course, he was featured extensively in Call of Duty, Call of the Dead. He sadly passed away in 2017, so it was nice to see an homage to this famous director. Also, if players go to this outer walkway, there's a secret area that can be accessed by crouching and approaching the left corner of the flinger. You'll then get flung literally to this area where you have to use a heat pack because you have to swim such a far way. And when you reach the other side, the secret area has apparently Mars in the background, and the loading screen music for this area has Shangri-La's music. Apparently this is a reference to the fact that back in the Shangri-La days, fans thought that this map was connected to Mars one way or another, so they're just kind of tying it all together here. Also on this map, if a player is froze 10 times, a button will appear in the spawn area near a chunk of ice, and then when you press it, all the players will be locked into the spawn area, and Samantha will say don't freeze, then players can continue their current round, but will slowly freeze if they don't sprint. When the round ends though, the game will jump 200 rounds forward. This Easter egg was not even discovered until like 4 months after this map came out, and Treyarch kind of tweeted a hint to it, and 2 weeks later someone finally found this. But yeah, wow.
But now we get to a completely new era of Call of Duty with the Modern Warfare 1 reboot that came out in 2019. Overall, this was a great game in my opinion, and this kind of reignited my passion for COD at the time. So I was very excited to have the chance to look for Easter eggs on this Call of Duty. One of the biggest additions to Modern Warfare 2019 was the gunfight game mode, which for the people who don't know is a 2v2 elimination game mode where every player gets the same random loadout. There's actually a pretty big Easter egg on the map Station that was introduced with Season 6, I think, of Modern Warfare 2019. And basically you have to shoot off these like stone plates and it will reveal 5 numbers and a keypad. And then you have to put on the 5 numbers into the keypad going from left to right, and then a big teddy bear will appear in the sky. And this is actually kind of sick. On the map Livestock, there's a similar Easter egg where you have to shoot all these different animal plushes like this duck or this teddy bear or this elephant plushie. And once you do that, there will be 2 teddy bears that spawn in the middle shed. And after you destroy those 2 teddies, the demon goats will spawn in and they'll slowly move towards the middle like circle thing. And once they reach the middle, your screen goes black and you die. Now one of the maps that was later introduced was Isle 9, and it has the Actibase console on it, which is a reference to Activision. And we'll actually see the Actibase stuff pop up a lot more, but we'll get to that later. Also in the lore, there's this defense weapons manufacturer company called Rothwin, and I think it's a play on Raytheon, which is an actual weapons manufacturer, but I guess they also sell televisions because you can buy a television at the store. On Al Rap base, there's this 69 sticker on this toolbox, which is nice, and they also advertise a 146% guarantee, which I don't know how that works. In this corner they got a bunch of interesting arcades as well, and one of them is an Actibase arcade. So that company once again shows up. Plus there's a burger town on this map. On Arklov Peak, if you look at the televisions, you can kind of see this picture of Ghost that randomly shows up on the television. I think that's what it is at least. It probably shows up on other maps too, but I noticed it here for the first time, and it kind of counts as an Easter egg. And also this clock is set to 117, which is 117, which must be a Halo reference, right? It has to be. On Cheshire Park, Cheshire Park, how do you pronounce this? Someone tell me. I have a feeling these magazines have developer pictures on them, like improve your sax life and stuff like that. I don't know, just makes me think those are developer pictures. They're kind of funny. And there's dog pictures on these newspapers that are taped all over the windows in this apartment, and I mean that's probably someone's pet or probably multiple pets from people working on this game. And also I think the oil paintings on the pub, they kind of look like developers too, no? Maybe I'm just like going insane here, but it just seems like these are developers being painted in oil. There's also this Easter egg that is a little more involved, kind of like a mini zombies Easter egg almost, and it's activating this Pied Piper statue here. What you gotta do to do that is find 5 mouse traps across the map and shoot them, and then a piece of cheese will spawn. You gotta pick up that piece of cheese and take it to the statue. Once you do that, the statue will start playing its tune and a bunch of like rats will show up and they'll start dancing. So yeah, I don't know, pretty cool. On the map Crash, there's the pharmacy run by M. Urich, which is probably the developer Michael Urich, who is an artist that worked on the game. Then tucked away in this corner, I saw the Activision console, and the back of the box actually has screenshots from Infinite Warfare, like you can see the space level, and also has Ghosts pictures on it. You can see Riley, and I think there's also like an Extinction picture and maybe a Zombies picture. I couldn't really make it out. Someone tell me what the second picture is. The gunfight map Dogs used to have an Easter egg during the alpha for the game, where you can see this red balloon and this yellow jacket down in the sewers. This is a reference to the movie It, to that scene where Georgie gets his arm ripped off, which actually I don't think they showed it in the movie, at least on the original movie. I haven't seen the remake yet, but I think it's in a book. In the book they talk about how he gets his arm ripped off, and I think it's just implied in the movie. Someone tell me what happens in the remake, because I don't actually know. While the It Easter egg might have been removed from the release version of Dogs, there's a winter version of Dogs that would later be put into the game for one of the Christmas events. And there's actually 2 Easter eggs you can find on this map. The first one is when you shoot this weather vane, Price would emerge from the sky on a sleigh pulled by a deer and Riley at the front and a giant teddy bear sitting on the back. The sleigh would then disappear and leave like a fire trail. This is like an Easter egg reference to the Back to the Future movie from 1985. For the second Easter egg, it's required for 2 players to shoot 2 snowmen in their spawn areas during the first few seconds of the match. If you time it successfully, both characters will wear a top hat and a carrot as a nose. Is the map Gunrunner a Ghost remake? It kind of reminds me of Frame crate a lot, but there's some different areas. Like over here in the container area, it looks a lot different. But also there's these ducks with the head shot off on the shooting range, close to where the teddy used to be. So I don't know, does this count? On the map Hardhead, there's this big advertisement for a convention, and one of the guest speakers is called J. Locke, which is maybe a reference to a character from World of War, but there's also a second name, S. Smith, and I couldn't really figure out who that is, so maybe I'm not onto anything here. Maybe these are just random names. Also the name Yurik that we had on Crash earlier, who ran the pharmacy, returns, and this time he is on this like weather barrier construction material that you put on the walls. On Petrov Ulrich we didn't find anything, but someone spilled mustard over here. Piccadilly has the Roxana Bracamontes Art Center, who's someone that worked in the art department for this game. Also there's Riley's Circus Arcade, which is probably a reference to the dog from Ghosts once again. I feel like he shows up a couple times in this game actually. Which takes me to St. Petrograd, which is like where I saw these bobblehead dogs, and I tried convincing Elijah that this was Riley, but like he didn't buy it. He thought it was like a different dog completely. So I don't know, you tell me if you think this looks like Riley from Ghosts. I think it does. Elijah didn't. He thought it was like a Doberman or something. Also there's this Russian bootleg Godzilla movie that has a bear instead of Godzilla, but it still has like the atomic breath and it looks kind of sick. On the Verdansk stadium map there's this big soccer and you can actually shoot it and get it into one of the goals, and it'll fire off fireworks and play some music. And also the score will update at the top on the scoreboard. And also there's a banner advertising the World Series of Warzone, which is funny because the stadium is from the Warzone map. And I mean the World Series of Warzone was maybe a real event? I don't even know. Going to the campaign, there is this one mission where you are infiltrating this house and you're like all in night vision and there's like a family in there, and you're not supposed to obviously attack the family. But if you do, you get this game over screen. But if you do it 4 times, you get this are you serious screen, and there's this really creepy voice playing. After that, you get booted back to the menu and you have to select the mission again and restart it all. Now, a couple months after Modern Warfare 2019's release, they dropped Warzone 1.0, which was a big success. It came out during the perfect time and everybody and their mama was playing this game. Since Modern Warfare 2019 was kind of a reboot of the Modern Warfare series, they hit a bunch of COD 4 locations in this Warzone 1.0 map. We had stuff like Broadcast, we had Kill House, there was Vacant, there was the house from Overgrown, you had the Ferris wheel from All Gilead Up. You could even see this little area that looked like Mile High Club. And then sometimes they would even branch out and go to stuff like Scrapyard from Modern Warfare 2, which would also be found in this map. And I don't think I noticed this one at the time, but there was also a campaign level from Modern Warfare 3 called Turbulence that was recreated in this small section on the Warzone 1.0 map. Oh, and also there was Burger Town, obviously, which was, you know, a big deal at the time as well.
With all of Black Ops 1, 2, 3, and 4 and World at War done, we have one game left to look at, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, which had quite a bit of interesting nods and Easter eggs hidden throughout the story and multiplayer and zombies. On the very first level of the campaign, the intro mission and opening shot starts with the flame of a lighter, which is an homage to the first Call of Duty Black Ops game that opens up the very same way. A little later, there's a campaign level called Operation Fractured Jaw, which is a reference to the real-world top-secret US military contingency plan that was essentially the plan to move nuclear weapons into South Vietnam so that they could use nukes at short notice against North Vietnamese troops. This plan allegedly, though, was abandoned very shortly after the concept phase started, probably for the better. On the campaign level, red light, green light, if the player pushes the button on the right side of this Bubby statue, which is by the big old good old Burger Town, it'll eject an M79.
Great! You're gonna love my meat inside you!
But also, Burger Town's here, which in itself is a reference to something that's been in Call of Duty for a long time. Burger Town did show up in Modern Warfare 2019 and Warzone, but its first appearance was actually all the way back in the original Modern Warfare 2. And if I'm understanding this correctly, this is the first time a Treyarch-led game had Burger Town in it, though Raven Software was the one that really worked on the campaign here, so it is interesting to see Burger Town nonetheless. Also, on this level alone, there's a lot of little interesting, neat details. There's this cool arcade with a lot of games that are even playable, some from Activision's old library of very old games, which is really cool. And yeah, the games are playable, which is an even cooler bonus, but the little other details also appeared in the multiplayer map America, so we'll talk about those when we go through the multiplayer map. On the campaign level Echoes of a Cold War, Mason has the ability to unlock this one locker, and inside the locker there's a picture of Steiner from Black Ops 1, and this will cause Mason to see the numbers again. Also, when you leave the control room, if you look to the left, you can see that catwalk that was blown up from Black Ops 1's campaign. On the campaign level Desperate Measures, Gorbachev says, "We are in grave danger from the capitalists. Our collective, our very way of life is at risk," which is not only a very clever homage to the dialogue that JFK gives to Alex Mason in Black Ops 1, but also an interesting narrative parallel being developed here as well. Also an obvious one, but still a cool one, it's worth noting that in Call of Duty Black Ops, Zakayev makes an appearance. It's brief, but it's really notable because this was a major character in the original Modern Warfare trilogy, and while this version of the character is not the same one from the original Modern Warfare trilogy, it is worth noting the character does show up kind of in Modern Warfare 2019 towards the end briefly, and his son is mentioned as well, which could mean that the Black Ops timeline also was absorbing the rebooted Modern Warfare timeline. We will have to wait to see more story elements come out later on, but it is interesting nonetheless. When you're in the safe house, one of the computers actually will operate the same way, similarly to what the Black Ops 1 computer would do, allowing you to even play some of the same things or read through files like you could in the original Black Ops 1. On the campaign level Breakthrough, there's a lot of alternate routes that can occur, and we don't know if these actually count as Easter eggs or just very interesting moments for a campaign. But yeah, one of the options, if you go the right way, can have you fighting off against zombies or even fighting off against Adler clones. It just depends on which route you take on this level. Over on the multiplayer side of things, there are a ton of little references hidden throughout the game. Nuketown, of course, if you go and shoot all of the heads right away, it'll activate a green vision type mode that's supposed to be retro inspired, and it's interesting. Maybe it's not as cool as some of the other ones that have existed, but it's still kind of neat. On the multiplayer map Miami, if you look at these posters of fish back here, you can see a little poster for Big Tony the fish, which I don't really understand what that is, but I kind of like it. On the multiplayer map Moscow, this clock here in Moscow is set to 1:15 or 1:15 p.m. Another reference to 1:15. On the multiplayer map Cartel, Menendez, the main antagonist from Black Ops 2, has a ton of references all over the map, but did you know there's also a little picture over here hanging up of Nuketown randomly? Okay, when Luke and I were looking through every single map for this video and detailing all the Easter eggs, trying to make sure we included as much as we could, it was definitely quite the journey, but no map was as fun to look through than the map The Pines. This map is so craftfully designed, we just have to note that like this map is probably one of our top favorite designed maps. There's so many different details, but we'll try to cover as many as we can. Firstly, The Pines itself is a reference and homage to the same mall from the Back to the Future movie. You can see the similarities in the logo design. Even more so though, the coordinates that are given for this mall actually are coordinates of a real world mall in New Jersey, though I don't think there's any visual similarities other than the locations themselves, but still it's interesting that they picked to make sure that the coordinates lined up with a real location. There's a record store, and in the record store there's a ton of album artwork that's a lot of times homages to real bands and music that's out there, but there's also a Nuketown band, which is kind of clever. There's also this photography store, and you can see these amazing 80s inspired photos where you can get your picture taken, or at least what your pictures could end up looking like if you decide to get your picture taken. Another thing that was big with Black Ops Cold War, of course, was the Mountain Dew and Doritos sponsorship, and of course, all over the place, there's these retro Mountain Dew and Doritos logos just in various places. We had to put this in somewhere, but this exists beyond just this specific level. It's all over the game. There's a store called Friendsers, which is obviously a play on the real store Spencer's. They even sell lava lamps and like disco ball lights and whatnot. They do sell Bubby figures from the Burger Town, and Zero, one of the operators from Black Ops 4, as a figure in this store as well. Over in the arcade, there's a lot of arcade machines that are either from the campaign or an Activision game, or even an older zombie-inspired pinball machine that could make an appearance. But there's also a new one called Super Dead Ops Cold War Pinball, and another one called Monkey Bomb Pinball, which both are pretty cool inclusions. We really liked the giant phones in the mobile phone display over here. It just seemed cool. There's an electronics store called Radio House, which is obviously a play on the real store Radio Shack that used to exist. And then near the arcade, there's like a separate little restaurant room area for like a little restaurant shop, or I guess maybe where you would have a birthday party if you were to have one at an arcade. And on the wall, there's a mural which is inspired by a video game, probably playing a little bit of a parody on The Legend of Zelda. It's kind of clever. Okay, we couldn't 100% figure out what these mean, but out in the parking lot, all of of the license plates are very carefully selected. We don't know necessarily what they all mean. They look like some of them are special dates. Maybe there's like a little hidden message in them. But what we think is the developers, maybe a couple of them, each got to pick their own message to put on a license plate, and they did that to, I don't know, make some little callback that only they know about. Also over by the movie theater, there's some funny movie posters. And then just, of course, in general, just because this map is very well designed, if you're looking for something interesting to look at, it is fun to just go through the food court and look at all of the menu items and all the little things that are on display. This map is still really cool. On the remake of Drive-In, the original Black Ops map, it's actually mostly the same, except the World at War arcade machines are this time changed slightly, where instead of the MP40 being the weapon on the arcade machine, it's a PPSH, and you can see the World at War main menu when you look at the arcade cabinet instead, which is a nice new touch. On the multiplayer map America, we have Burger Town accessible again here, and there's a board here advertising birthdays, which is kind of cool, and there's a bunch of pictures of what we assume are developers here. Also, those goofy movie posters are back in this little cinema, so that's great. Game Show was an interesting map. For a gunfight map, there's a lot of little things hidden here. It seems like the studio lot is right next to a movie set for Grave Hill, which is the same set of that Black Ops map that we looked at earlier that had a bunch of Back to the Future references in it. Inside of this dressing room, if you break the mirrors, you can actually find some interesting things behind them, like sticky notes or numbers or a window to an interrogation room. What's going on here? Also, does anyone know what this comic book is? We were trying to figure it out, but we could not figure it out for the life of us. Then shifting gears over to zombies, there also were some interesting Easter eggs here as well. During the opening cinematic that went with Die Machine, the first zombies map of Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, you can see Sam typing in a number, and the spelling of the numbers that are dialed actually translates to Maxis. There's this Easter egg that features 4 zombies dancing with a reward crate on their shoulders, which is a reference to that big meme of the coffin dance. Okay, the obvious one with the Die Machine map is that, hey, look, it's the original zombie house from Call of Duty World at War, but it looks different. But a little bit after the release of Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War and Die Machine, they actually added in a questline Easter egg like we've seen since Ascension and Black Ops 1. There's a lot going on in this one, but obviously there are the steps you have to follow, just like with all of the newer zombie maps. I don't know, you have to like help free this dude who's been locked in the area for a long time, but it's pretty cool. There's also, of course, a Easter egg song, which is Alone by Kevin Sherwood, once again, who did most of the zombies music, and it's sung by Clark S. Nova, and it can be activated by interacting with 3 cassette tapes that are hidden around the map. Also, it's worth noting, if you get a ray gun, sometimes there is a jump scare that'll happen with that, so be prepared for that. Then we can go to Firebase Z, which was the next release for zombie maps. There was once again a quest line that you had to go for to get the Easter egg accomplished. This one was called Maxis Potential. It essentially tasks Requiem with rescuing Samantha Maxis from the Dark Ether. Then of course there's another Easter egg song called Lost, which is sung by Samantha's voice actress. Once again, this one can be activated if you find the 3 cassette tapes hidden around the map. Also, there's this other Easter egg after you've activated all 3 ether reactors, where if you like stare at this bunny for a while, it'll levitate, and then you can go hunting for these bunny rabbits, and if you shoot and find the bunny 3 times, you can actually get a crate that will contain a bunch of rewards and Juggernog, which is nice. Also, it's worth noting on the map itself, there's an office for Lev Krashenko. The next map was Mauer der Toten, with the main quest line called Tin Man Heart. This time, players have to follow Kravchenko's orders and build an inversion warhead to close the Dark Ether portal in Berlin. Once again, another one of those quests that have a ton of little steps to it. There's also a hidden song called Amoeba by the American group Adolescence, to be activated by collecting the 3 cassette tapes hidden on this map as well. There's also another little bunny rabbit side quest where you have to collect 6 bunny parts that you can do to get some extra rewards. Then we had the Forsaken map, and this one had another main quest line with the Dark Ether and Forsaken worlds, and there's time dilation. I don't really know what's going on anymore. Samantha's fighting something also during all of this. Interestingly enough, the words "coming soon, Nacht der Untoten" can be read on the front sign of the theater in any town, which is a reference to the original Zombies map all the way back from Call of Duty World at War. To even add a bonus to this, there is an arcade machine, once again, like we saw earlier, of Call of Duty World at War with the PPSH, and this time you can actually activate the arcade machine and it will take you into the game World at War. Not really, but you essentially will be in the original Nacht der Untoten house from World at War, and you have to survive 3 rounds inspired by what the first 3 rounds typically looked like in a World at War experience. So you have to like knife stuff, shoot stuff, and use an M1 Garand to kill stuff too. It's really cool to see a World at War reference like this all the way later on in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War that essentially reminds players and takes players all the way back to its roots, bringing things essentially full circle here, which is really amazing.
Going on to Vanguard, we just kind of went in alphabetical order here. So we loaded up on Beheaded first, the map that has like that big Statue of Liberty head in the middle of the map. This is actually probably a reference to the movie Cloverfield, though I mean, we're not 100% sure on that. There are some interesting details here though, like if you look around, you can see names of characters from the Vanguard campaign. They appear as actors on multiple different movie posters you can find here. This building over here has the address number 420, which at first we were like, this is probably just like a coincidence. It's not really associated with, you know, the 420 stuff. But then ironically enough, there's like a big no smoking sign right underneath of the 420. And then we looked around some more and there's a signage that says clouds. So I don't know, maybe it is an intentional Easter egg. Also, we don't know if this counts, but this area over here kind of looks like the opening area from Shadows of Evil. Some other people have also thought that as well, so we just thought we'd include it. Going on to the next map in alphabetical order, Berlin, there's framed pictures of other maps. That was kind of interesting, I guess. Not too much else going on a lot of these maps, so we'll go through them a little bit quicker here. Like Castle from World at War that was remade here. We already talked about the Morse code thing. On the multiplayer map, Desolation, we were running around looking for details, and we saw this body just floating out of bounds randomly. We don't know what's going on over there. When we got over to the multiplayer map Dome, we didn't see too much of interest, but we did find this random rubber ducky up here, just chilling. And that actually led us to this later realization that there are rubber duckies hidden in multiple maps across Call of Duty Vanguard. It's kind of like their little signature Easter egg. I don't know if it's every map though, because we couldn't find a rubber ducky on every map, but we did find quite a few of these, so we'll point them out as we see them. Over on Hotel Royale, we did find another teddy bear that was also next to a rubber ducky. The multiplayer map Mayhem's really interesting. It's like we're filming a movie and we have a little miniature city that you run around along. Not too much surprisingly going on. A few things that were worth noticing. Over here you can see the COD TV cameras, which I guess is a reference to Call of Duty. There's this German UFO out of bounds you can see over here as a different set piece for whatever movie they're filming. And then there's this kaiju, which we were both curious about this. It's kind of like the equivalent when your mom says that you have Godzilla at home and then you get home and this is what you have instead. But yeah. We ran around on shipment a bit hoping to find something and there wasn't really anything going on. We eventually did find a rubber ducky here, but that was about it. Also during the reveal stream for Call of Duty Vanguard, there was some talk about a new anti-cheat they're adding, and they showed a character swinging a sledgehammer that says ban on it. It's like a reference of a ban hammer, but it's Sledgehammer Games. Get it? It's like a little Easter egg. And then in the campaign side of Call of Duty Vanguard, there is that one sniper cat and mouse type level. And once again, there are a bunch of mannequins here, much like the sniper level from Call of Duty World at War, where both of these levels likely are drawing inspiration from the movie Enemy at the Gates, which has this like mannequin moment in the big cat and mouse sniper part. Call of Duty Vanguard really mixed things up with zombies, and I don't think it was too popular. They kind of went for these like event type experiences rather than the traditional zombies route. But there were some interesting Easter eggs besides the usual like music Easter egg you could expect. On the Arkin, I think is what it's called. If you used a shovel around 3 different parts, you could find parts to Mr. Peaks. It's like a bunny toy. And if you find all the parts, you could actually get a ray gun spawned in with some bonuses as well. They added Shinonuma back later on as like a DLC map with the full experience kind of there. They added in this little Easter egg quest line you could do where you want to build a wonder weapon. You have to remove some vines, solve the cipher. You have to do some other stuff and charge a podium all before doing a big old boss fight.
Going to the next Modern Warfare game, which is Modern Warfare 2 2020, we got the Brenberg Hotel map, which is actually Elijah's all-time favorite Call of Duty map. He told me that in secret and nobody besides me knows, so if he denies it, you know, he's lying. Now Elijah was trying to show me this loot and I was really confused why, but he said it will be relevant later and it's something he talks about later, so keep this loot in mind. Also, there was this whiskey called Big 2 Liquor, which seemed interesting to us because we remembered on Call of Duty Ghosts on the map Octane, there was this bail bond building called Big 2 Bail Bonding, and there was this whole ad and we weren't sure if we're gonna mention it, and Elijah was like, is this ad a Better Call Saul reference? But I don't think we ever ended up mentioning the Big 2 stuff in the Ghost section, so it's kind of interesting that the Big 2 is back here. I wonder if it's someone's gamer tag or someone's nickname that works on these maps. Moreover, on Crown Raceway, we found these Actibase console controllers. I didn't see the console, but the controllers are all over the place over by these screens on the side. The map Embassy was kind of odd because this is a US embassy and there's a bunch of pictures of bombed cities. Why would the US embassy hang up a bunch of pictures of destroyed cities? I don't even know. The map Himmelmat Expo was interesting because the outside of the map was actually ginormous, and we flew out there and there was like all this working stuff, like this working little tram section and stuff. But also in the map there were these posters with some generic words on it. But if you're writing a resume, use all these words and you'll sound more hireable. May or may not work. On the map Valderas Museum, we found this picture of a dog, and I don't think we've seen this picture yet, and I think it's probably someone's pet once again. Then we loaded up on the map La Casa, and I was really hoping we find some Shungite. You guys know about Shungite? No, I'm not talking about Suge Knight. I'm talking about this 2 billion year old like rock stone that protects against frequencies and unwanted frequencies that may be traveling in the air. And I bought a whole bunch of little pyramids and I put them around the La Casa. But sadly, the map La Casa did not have any Shungite on it, and nothing else that was kind of interesting either. Then on the map Puta Mar, there is these family pictures, and they kind of look real and not like stock pictures, so they might be someone's family that worked on the game. There's also this nice lady Raquel that is offering solicitations, whatever that means. And there's this graffiti of this red person eating cheese or something, and it says death to the rats in Spanish. Also, it was on this map that we noticed that there's some stuff that is readable on the Xbox version that aren't readable on PC, but also there's some things that I could see on PC that just weren't there for Elijah at all. So I don't know what's going on. Also, during the Christmas time, they would add a variant of shipment that was kind of Christmas themed, and if you looked outside the map, you could see Santa flying around. And if you go outside the map, at the very front, you can see Riley from Ghost leading the charge as Rudolph himself. He's even glowing red a little bit, I think. Also, I found this Reddit post where someone said they bullet glitched out while they were in the firing range, and you could read the back of the bullet casing and it says, "Big Uvu, so much ouchie." And then there's another Reddit post I found where someone else had the glitch happening, but on a different magazine or a different gun, and it says, "Love, be mine." On this one. Also, if you look at one of the default operators called Race, you might notice that this is a character from Infinite Warfare, first of all, but second, he has this armband with a map on it, and if you zoom in, you can see that it is a section from the original Warzone map Verdansk. Then on the Warzone 2.0 map that launched with Modern Warfare 2's version of Warzone, there's like this museum type area, and there's a sign on one of the exhibits, and the sign has a funny text on it. It reads, "Here's some additional tiny information for the exhibition signage, because there is simply not enough time to write paragraphs of unique facts in the way a real museum exhibit might. It is my hope that this text will eventually be illegible, unlike the previous signs in Modern Warfare, which many diligent people online took the time to translate and transcribe, much to my horror. In any case, I continue to appreciate all of the people who take a moment out of their day to read incidental signage such as this. It is meant to add a certain authenticity to the world. It always makes me and the rest of the team happy to see people appreciate the tiny details. So keep looking, you never know what you'll find." Which is kind of a sweet message now that I fully read it, and that's kind of interesting because that's basically what me and Elijah did for hours and hours when we made this video. We were looking at tiny details. Next we go on to Call of Duty 20 Modern Warfare 3 2, featuring maps from Call of Duty 6 Modern Warfare 2 1, and a BR mode inspired from Call of Duty 15 Black Ops III, or for short, COD MW32, FT, maps from COD 6 MW2-1, and a BR mode from COD 15 BOIII. There's a lot of classic MW2 maps, so there's some interesting places to look at, but there's also some new maps that have some interesting little details and Easter eggs on them. First we go to Deraildo, where there's this burger town outside the map now that wasn't there in the original Modern Warfare 2. Also, there's this picture of a dog. It's probably a developer dog, that's my best guess. Also, there is an England national team scarf on this table, so someone here must be a big England fan. Also, I found this hula girl in this workshop kind of dancing in this corner, which is interesting. And also there's this crazy poster that has like a train with a skull on the front running someone over. I mean, that's not really an Easter egg, but I don't know. I couldn't go without mentioning it. On Das Haus, which is a remake from Vanguard actually, which is kind of interesting, you can see the Actibase headquarters in the skybox, which are the makers of the Actibase console that you see pop up on other maps, but we'll get to that later. On Departures, which is another airport map, kind of like Terminal, if you're on the Spetsnaz team, I think, it opens up with you getting up the elevator, and that's kind of cool. Could Could be a little nod to No Russian. Then you can also find this Burger Town, and they're selling this Badger toy, and they do a little Fortnite dance, which is kind of weird, but I also found one sitting here, and it looks like it is a fan product for that sports team from the Verdansk Stadium, and there's also other merch like this baseball cap that you can find on this map. Close to the Burger Town, there's also this sign that says Prohibited Items American Food, and that's kind of ironic being next to a burger place in my opinion. Also then I found this Texas mug, which, how is there Texas mugs if you can't have American food? Kind of seems like a breach of rules. I mean, I don't know what's going on here. And then also floating outside the map, there's this one, and it's kind of disappearing and appearing in, and I think it's just like a respawn timer. And if you fly out even further, you can find this low poly version of Storage Town from the Verdansk map. Going on to the state, there is a lot of dog and cat pictures all over the place, and I mean, these are probably pets from developers, knowing the history of these pictures in these games. Downstairs in the basement where the pool floaty used to be, there's this teddy bear now, and upstairs where the pool floaty used to be on the campaign version of this map, there's a crash test dummy now. Also, we thought this person looked like Nora Salter from Infinite Warfare, and I don't know, there's no way to confirm it, but maybe someone sees it, I don't know. Also in the living room you can find pictures of developers next to this picture of Captain Price. And there's another teddy bear at the bottom of the map. Favela also has multiple teddy bears you can find, and also this zombie arm poster with the Infinity Ward logo on it, which makes me think Infinity Ward worked on this map in some form. But also there's a Sledgehammer Games graffiti over here, so I don't know. Also, is this a photo studio and a barber shop? On the map Crease, you can find Cafe Nicolas, and I found this interesting because the spelling is with 2 A's, and there's actually someone working at Activision as a user research person with that spelling of Nicolas. So maybe this cafe is dedicated to him. On Crime, you can find Sledgehammer Games graffiti that says Sledgehammer Games Crew, and you can also find a Raven Software graffiti, which is this big raven. Then there's this bar at the river that's called Captain's Dog, and the mascot is a dog with a Captain Price hat on. That's pretty cool. It also says "You what mate" over here. On Crow House you can find this Breaking Bad van, and it even has the little detail with the duct tape on the door where there was the bullet holes and they duct taped over it. This might actually be my favorite Easter egg in this game. I don't know, I think it's just kind of cool. Then on High Rise I noticed that the elevator opening that I mentioned earlier isn't that cool because it also happens on High Rise, and apparently it also happens on Terminal, so I don't know, it just happens a lot. Maybe it kind of lost its charm there. There is Actibase arcades in this building because this building is the Actibase headquarters actually, and you can play Warbeast or Max 6 Motorsport or Spacecade. Also you can find this big display for the Actibase console that you would find in like a GameStop or something usually. Then there's a bunch of posters, and one of them says Nikita Dragovich presents, which that obviously is a reference to Black Ops 1's villain. Also Elijah said he can read developer names on this poster, and we had this big debate about his 4K 120 FPS on Xbox versus my computer performance. Also, if you do the classic out of bounds to get up on the roof and you don't suck at it for 10 minutes like us, then you get to see all these teddy bears on the roof, and you can shoot them and their heads pop off, and also they squeak when you shoot them. There's also a lot of teddy bears here, and they're wearing different clothes, so that's kind of different than it used to be, but hey, they're still here. On Invasion, if you're on the right team, you spawn in this vehicle, and on the dashboard of the vehicle there's this little ghost bobblehead. That's kind of a cute little detail. I don't know, we almost didn't notice it. And then I was typing the notes about this bobblehead, and Elijah AFK'd in front of this building, and he saw that the building number is 1337, and that's an elite Easter egg if you ask me. Also, you can find another ad for the Actibase console over here. And there's also these really old phones, and one of them looks like the classic Nokia phone that's indestructible. On Quarry, we noticed that there's these clipboards with the UNSA evaluation forms on them, and that's probably just a reused asset, but the United Nations Space Alliance appears in Infinite Warfare and plays a big part in that story, and it also appears in the lesser known Call of Duty Siege, and then also Modern Warfare 3 too. Now, I mean, Infinite Warfare is technically in the Modern Warfare timeline, or at least in the original Modern Warfare timeline, so you could connect it that way, but it still makes no sense that this is here, because this is way from the future. On Karachi, you can also find another teddy bear that is hidden on this ad, and on Rundown I found these blurry TV ads, and I think they say Crown Raceway, which is a map from Modern Warfare 2, the previous COD. Then on Rust, where the original Modern Warfare 2 ends, you can find this skull with a throwing knife in it, which is an obvious reference to the way Shepard died in the original Modern Warfare trilogy. And I don't know, the longer I look at this, the more I think this is just kind of funny being here. Scrapyard has this missing dog poster of a dog called Guillermo, which is a Spanish name, but we are in Afghanistan, which I'm only pointing out because on Skid Row you can find the same poster, but Skid Row is set in New York. So is this dog missing on multiple continents? Are we gonna find another poster on like a European map where he's also missing? This might be one of the worst dog owners I've ever seen. He doesn't even know which country his dog got lost in. On the Christmas/Halloween shipment map that came out in this game, you can see this Aurora Borealis, but you can also see these light skulls in the sky, and that kind of reminds me of Sea of Thieves, because there would be a big skull in the sky if you could do like an event there. And then in the containers are those frozen zombies. I mean, they have the orange glowing eyes, so who's controlling them? I never know who's controlling them. Is it Samantha? But like, I think this is a zombies Easter egg. And in spectator mode you can see the back of the boat, and it definitely looks like the boat from the COD 4 campaign from the very first mission. On this version of Terminal we found nothing, and honestly I'm just kind of sick of this map at this point, because we looked at so many different versions of Terminal and a lot of them didn't have any cool Easter eggs on them. They were just kind of meh. Like, I'm really disappointed that not every single version of this map has the 1337 flight at least, or something like that, because that would be a cool callback. But nope, they never went there. I know we didn't find anything, but this was just a little side rant because we looked at like 6 or 7 versions of Terminal and we were like hours into looking for Easter eggs on Modern Warfare 3, and I don't know, I was just kind of losing my mind at this point. On the map Vista you can find these moving boxes, and I swear to God I remember these moving boxes from IKEA from my childhood. I don't know if they still make them, but they have like the Ploodle board at the bottom and the moving truck on the side. These are definitely IKEA inspired, and I don't care what anyone else says. Also, there's the Christ the Redeemer statue outside the map, and Elijah spent like 10 minutes flying up to it, so here's his footage. I didn't want him to feel like he wasted his time, so here's the footage of him flying up to the statue. He spent a really long time. He sounded really exhausted holding down the flight button. Going to the campaign on the mission, you can find this dog, and the dog's name is Riley, which is the dog from Call of Duty Ghost, and you get the chance to pet him. On Flashpoint there's a little nod to the original Makarov, where he's sitting on the back of an ambulance, which is how the original No Russian mission ends, with Makarov shooting Private Allen out of an ambulance. Also on the same mission you can walk up to this dead mascot and you can salute him. Also at this point I noticed that the England scar from earlier probably ties to this campaign level and isn't really an Easter egg, because it seems like there was a national game at the stadium. Also towards the end of the mission you're supposed to escort Makarov, and if you get in front of him for a long amount of time he'll actually kill you and stomp on your face. In the mission Oligarchs you can find 2 golden weapons, one of them being a golden AK with a grenade launcher underneath, and the second one being a Kimbo Deagles. Modern Warfare 3 also introduced this like open world zombies mode that was kind of interesting, and there's a couple Easter eggs in it as well. Firstly, there is a jump scare, which is a zombies classic, and if you stand on top of this building and you aim up at this radio tower you will get this bunny jump scare. This will actually trigger a reward rift, which will give you a free tombstone soda. If you're close by the Talanov outpost you can find this bird statue that kind of works as a ramp, and if you get a vehicle and you jump off the ramp you will get a free speed cola this time. If you find this tall building and you run up the stairs all the way to the top, which will take a while because it's a pretty tall building, you get a free stamina up can. If you find this mansion south of the manor you can parkour up to the roof and then jump off into the pool, and if you do that you get a free PhD flopper. If you lob a grenade into the window of this old church you will get a free deadshot. If you find the campsite that has this bunny sitting on it that jump scared you earlier and you light the campfire with a Molotov, you will get a free Juggernog. Another free perk you can get is by flying through these 3 rings with the parachute without touching them, and you will get depth perception for free. Also, if you're on the highway with the ATV and you find this place with the bunny sitting on top of it, you will hear like this laugh, and if you make it to the next sign in time you will get a free quick revive can.
Okay, now for some of you boomers, let's go ahead and look at the old Call of Duty games from back in the day, like Call of Duty Finest Hour, which has one of the coolest and creepiest Easter eggs in all of Call of Duty history. If you're playing on the campaign level underground passage and you go by these spiral stairs, you can throw a grenade at this door, try to open the door, then throw another grenade at it, and this hallway will open up that leads into this weird room where there's a lot going on here. There's floating candles, there's maybe creepy ghosts, there's pictures of babies on the walls, which is already scary. It's probably developer babies. Even the soldiers with you will acknowledge that they're in some weird room.
This is easily the creepiest thing I've ever seen.
There's like a toilet you can flush. What is this thing? I think there's a giant rat or something. There's this creepy ghost soldier that like walks away and disappears, and while you're in there, the game will reward you with some weird items like this pink explosive thing that explodes. I don't know. This is a really, really cool Easter egg, especially for such an old Call of Duty game. Also, on the same level, you can throw some grenades at this little wooden passageway, and there's another creepy Easter egg, but this one is quite a bit different. It's like a secret German dance party, and yeah, they don't even acknowledge your existence, but I don't know what's going on here. The music goes pretty hard though. Listen to this. Like, honestly, what are you supposed to do? You're a World War II soldier, you show up to, you know, fight some battles, you infiltrate, you find their secret cave, and they're all just, like, doing this. I mean, it's impressive, but, man, I don't know, I think you just slowly back away and let them be. On the level Operation Little Saturn, if you take your tank and you drive it up this mountain and just kind of keep going for a while, you'll reach this area you're not supposed to be. Well, maybe you're not supposed to be. And for whatever reason, up on this ridgeline, there's a giant apple. Why is this here? Well, from there, if you drive directly into the giant apple, you clip right through the apple, and inside you'll find a UFO, something Call of Duty hasn't hidden in a campaign in quite some time. I really appreciate YouTuber TV for documenting all of these Easter eggs in somewhat good quality, because there's a couple other ones from Finest Hour that I wouldn't have known about otherwise, like this secret basement you can find on the mission Depot Saboteurs, and you do the regular routine of like hitting the action button, throwing a grenade at whatever's in front of you, but this time you have to do it a couple of times, and this entryway will open up, and from there you can head down into this weird basement that has more ghostly creatures, maybe? I don't know. There's like a thing floating here. What is that? A lute? What type of instrument is this? There's some pictures of people. A ghost will appear and play the instrument for a minute, and then that's it. Over on the mission Come Out Fighting, you can actually just like walk through some surfaces you wouldn't think you would normally be able to walk through, and eventually find a big secret UFO inside of a building just on display. You know, one of those secret German projects from World War II that people have conspiracy theories about. On the same campaign level, there's this other house that you can go inside that has this random giant chair and very small door. We also found this really interesting Easter egg. It seems like in the OG Call of Duty games, a lot of the soldier names were named after developers who worked on the game directly. Matter of fact, this is kind of a tradition that's been continued on throughout the years with various random soldiers in Call of Duty games, but just to confirm this, we looked at the list of the random generated names you can get as a random soldier for Call of Duty, and a lot of names of pretty key developers from back in the day at Infinity Ward do share last names as potential names, like West, Zampella, Baker, even Bell, who is that Ned guy from Modern Warfare 3 Easter eggs we talked about, Gigliotti, Pearson, Hammond, Silvers. These are all names of pretty big developers that worked on Call of Duty and later Infinity Ward titles. Similarly, when games like United Offensive came out, there were new names added into the pool of potential names that could pop up, and we were able to match some of these names with developers from Gray Matter Interactive who worked on that version of the game. We even cross-checked this with names that came up in later Call of Duty games, like Call of Duty 2. We could see Porter, who we talked about a lot in this video. That's a potential last name, and we know that he joined during the Call of Duty 2 era. Call of Duty 3, which was Treyarch's first Call of Duty game, even has Vonderhaar in it, who many of you guys know as the head of Treyarch for many, many years. Also, in the training level of Call of Duty 2 at the very beginning, when they put us in a position where we were supposed to shoot that teddy bear that kind of started the whole teddy bear trend in Call of Duty, I guess. If you refuse to shoot the teddy bear and you keep shooting like the alcoholic drinks in the background or just not participate, everyone will turn on you. They'll call you a traitor, so make sure you shoot the teddy, I guess. Also, we found this random piano that you can interact with in Call of Duty 2. It's not that interesting, but I mean, I guess, yeah, you can make noise with it. And here's something I didn't know about, but Call of Duty 2's voice cast was actually pretty incredible. Matter of fact, if you compare the cast members who voiced characters in Call of Duty 2 to the cast of, say, Band of Brothers, you'll notice that many of the cast choices of people who were signed on to voice characters in COD 2 were originally from the television show Band of Brothers. That's neat. Call of Duty 2 Big Red One was like a standalone DLC type release for Call of Duty 2. It was developed by Treyarch, but interestingly enough, the GameCube version of the game has a couple of things that are unique about it. Like, for instance, this tank apparently has the Mario power-up star on it, which I guess is exclusive to the Nintendo version of the game. That's kind of cool. Nobody ever talks about this. Also, throughout several different chapters of the single-player campaign, you can occasionally hear the Wilhelm scream. so they added that in too. In Call of Duty 1, there's a gravestone to the name B. Allen, and it has some French next to it. Now, B. Allen's a reference to Brad Allen, who was one of the game's artists working at Infinity Ward, and this French line of text actually translates to "let me out of the box." Wow. Also in Call of Duty 3, if you look at the multiplayer map Verdun from the top down, it kind of looks like a smiley face. Also, have you ever wondered on the Call of Duty 3 box art, like, who the soldier is shooting at? I mean, like, the rest of his squad's, like, looking one way, and he's straight up shooting behind him right here. So let's go ahead and switch over and talk about the Call of Duty spin-off games and some of the Easter eggs that are over there. Now, for the most part, it seems like Easter eggs in a lot of the handheld games or mobile games are pretty limited, but there are a couple of things that are worth mentioning here. Like, for instance, across multiple of the Call of Duty DS games, there are secret snowmen that can be found on multiplayer maps. Like here on Call of Duty 4, you can find one. And then they show up again across multiple DS Call of Duty games. I think this is maybe like a little hidden Easter egg that the DS development team decided to continuously throw in, because you can see them on multiple different multiplayer maps from their run, which lasted from COD 4 all the way through Modern Warfare 3. Over on Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified, this game was apparently thrown together in just a few months, so there probably wasn't a whole lot of time to hide Easter eggs in it. However, some players did notice that on some of the books, you can see a reference to Richthofen once again, like you can in the actual Black Ops 1 game, and I think that this is probably more of a case of a reused texture that's downscaled rather than an intentional Easter egg for the PSP version of Black Ops. I mean, this game didn't even have a dedicated zombies mode, so I have that feeling that a zombies reference would be a little weird, and I think that since this already existed in Black Ops, it's probably just repeating itself here as well. Then over on Call of Duty Mobile, this game apparently has a huge influx of Easter eggs. Some of them are more like interactive events that you participate in, others are just little tiny things. We won't go into all of the details on them because we're not as familiar with Call of Duty Mobile. It's kind of like its own thing separate from the main Call of Duty games and spin-offs. Like, they've done Easter eggs that are as obvious or big as a literal like Easter egg hunt with real eggs and stuff. So I don't know, Call of Duty Mobile is a whole different beast. But one game that I feel like is very interesting and worth noticing is Call of Duty Online. This was a Call of Duty game that only released in China and was an online service that took maps from various Call of Duty games and created this like unique experience. But here's the thing, it utilized a lot of classic Modern Warfare 2 locations as multiplayer maps, but some of the multiplayer maps that were in Call of Duty Online, while they were from Modern Warfare 2, were revamped to have a completely different appearance. And I always love it when a map has like a different version that's exclusive to like a certain game, because it is cool to see maps like Estate, but more tropical, or Favela tropical. Sometimes like the weather is just changed on the map, and I always thought that was kind of interesting. But then a couple of years later during Call of Duty Online's run, they took things a step further and did even more. They introduced their own version of Call of Duty Zombies, except I think likely because of censorship issues in China, they couldn't actually use zombies, so they did these like creepy cyborg monsters, which is awesome in itself. But then they took the original classic zombies maps from Call of Duty World at War, later remade in Black Ops and later CODs, and recreated them to fit into the style of this like cyborg thing. So like the first map was the equivalent of Nocturne on Toten, but instead it was called Outpost, and it had the same layout as the World at War map, but instead it, looks like this. Verrucht was a very different change of pace when they remade it. They turned it into a cyborg lab, which is insane, no pun intended. And then Shinonuma was turned into Ghost Swamp, which looked more like this. And then there was one more called Mechanical Body Manufacture Lab, which ended up being Deriza. And I don't know if this is really an Easter egg. This probably more falls in line to like the details you might not have known about. I feel like most Call of Duty players on the West never even knew that these versions of the maps existed. They might have known of Call of Duty Online, they might have known of Cyborg Zombies or whatever, but maybe never realized that these are maps from the OG days, just redesigned and remodeled. And I think that that's kind of neat. I'd be curious to see if down the road we see some of these elements brought back in some way or another, because it is a cool way to revitalize some of these original nostalgic locations from Call of Duty and use them in somewhat of a different way. Have you ever
ever noticed that throughout the Call of Duty franchise, there's an absurdly high number of cows that have appeared throughout the years? Yes, cows. C-O-W-S in Call of Duty. Actually, one thing that's really interesting is that while at first glance it may just look like a random set piece, as it turns out, this has been an ongoing Easter egg throughout the Call of Duty franchise, dating all the way back to the very first Call of Duty game. And if we want to really go down the rabbit hole, as it turns out, there's some deeper meaning to these cows that serve as the reason that these cows show up in the Call of Duty games. Essentially, the references to something else even bigger, but also has become a recurring nod to previous Call of Duty games that had cow Easter eggs in them as well. So this all started in Call of Duty 1, where in some of the Normandy levels, there are some dead cows in a field that you can use for cover, and this also even showed up in Call of Duty 2, and as a small subtle Easter egg in the credits of the game, Infinity Ward actually included no cows were harmed in the making of this game, for both COD 1 and 2. Actually, in Call of Duty United Offensive, which released exclusively on PC, there's an Easter egg where if you no-clip through a door going into a basement, you can find this giant oversized cow that has a bell around his neck. It's just kind of interesting. And in the Call of Duty 3 multiplayer, there's some more of these cows over here as well. By the time 2007 rolled around, in time for Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare and Call of Duty's jump away from the World War II theme into the more modern day combat, Infinity Ward would not break the trend that they started, having cows make an appearance in the campaign level's safe house and heat in the fields that are near the barn. At this point, it was becoming more and more of a running gag at Activision across all Call of Duty games, where even Treyarch was sure to include a cow Easter egg in one way or another. Within World at War, on the level Their Land, Their Blood, there is a dead German that's laying on top of one of the cows, which is found inside of the barn right next to one of the death cards, which was a collectible back in World at War that gave you special abilities. But just the fact that they paired this cow Easter egg right next to a collectible kind of shows that this is more than just an ongoing coincidence, whether it's showing up in the credits or just the fact that it's been in every Call of Duty so far. It just kind of seems like one of the most important features of any Call of Duty game at this point. Modern Warfare 2 continued this trend also, where actually across many different multiplayer maps you can see various cows, such as in this field on the multiplayer level Rundown, and also you can find it over on the multiplayer map Wasteland, which is a remake of Call of Duty 1 and 2's Brecourt, which also had dead cows in the original version, and then Modern Warfare 2 brought it back and made sure to include dead cows here as well. Call of Duty Black Ops by 2010 still made sure to have cows incorporated in one way or another, though admittedly this time around it was a little bit different than just having some dead cows somewhere. These cows are actually alive, and they show up in Dead Ops Arcade, where they're a bunch of animals that'll just kind of walk across the map in a single file line, and if you walk in front of the cows, you'll end up actually getting trampled, and they're incorporated as kind of an extra challenge in the game itself. They can only actually be killed with explosives, and if you manage to kill some glowing cows, which is just kind of an amazing phrase I never thought I'd have to say, you actually get a large amount of treasure once they are killed. In Modern Warfare 3, there's a couple of brief cows that make appearances in this game, which is back on the grid, where you can see it right in front of the watchtower. Then on the multiplayer map Lookout, you can see some tangled up in barbed wire, and there's some more dead cows on the multiplayer map Vortex. Okay, but then things get a little bit more complicated when we look at this tradition of having a cow appear in every Call of Duty game, because as far as we can tell, Call of Duty Black Ops 2 does not have a cow appear in any instance throughout the entire game. We checked the multiplayer maps, we looked through the campaign, and we couldn't find anything, nor could we find any documentation of people finding cows online. Though, to be fair, this isn't necessarily the most sought after Black Ops 2 Easter egg in all of existence, so we could be missing something. So if anyone finds a cow in Black Ops 2, it would be really interesting, though it does seem like this is kind of where the trend of cows appearing in every single Call of Duty game starts to go away a little bit, though Call of Duty Ghosts does keep the trend going, which was an Infinity Ward game once again, where if you go on the giant map in Ghosts called Stonehaven, you go to a field outside the map, and if you climb up on the second floor, you can actually see some cows in the distance with a sniper rifle. So hey, they made it at least this far in Call of Duty as well. Advanced Warfare was the first Call of Duty game that was made by Sledgehammer Games, and unfortunately we couldn't also find any cow references in this game, though once again we could be missing something, so if we are, please do let us know. We really need to know this. So we can't help but to wonder if Call of Duty Black Ops 2 was originally supposed to have Dead Ops Arcade and then just didn't, because Dead Ops Arcade did make a return in Call of Duty Black Ops 3. We do see the return of zombie cows in one form or another, so we can see the cow trend kind of picking up yet one more time. Okay, then we go to Infinity Ward, who started this whole thing at the beginning and had continuously included cows in one way or another, even through Call of Duty Ghosts, and with their next Call of Duty entry, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, the game went to space. It was wild. There are things just going on in outer space. There wasn't a whole lot of room to maybe sprinkle in a cow or two in the campaign. Though, the one thing that we did catch that we thought is incredibly interesting is that in the credits of the game, it has this little pop-up at the end that no robots were harmed in the making of this game, which in a way is a reference to the very first Call of Duty game that had that same disclaimer saying that there were no cows harmed in the making of the game. So while there's no cows, the little reference kind of lives on in one way or another with another Infinity Ward title. Call of Duty World War II was an interesting one because it did see the return of cows in some form or another. It's not very heavily documented other than art station posts, but I mean, look at these are definitely cows. Next we had Call of Duty Black Ops 4, which didn't have a campaign, but it did introduce Blackout, but as far as we can tell, no cows, unfortunately. Though when Infinity Ward made its return once again, we did see a couple of dead cows show up in Modern Warfare 2019. Also, there was a cow that was eventually spotted in Warzone, so yeah, the cow did make it into the big battle royale thing as well. However, as far as we can tell, we haven't seen the return of cows ever since. With the release of Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War and Call of Duty Vanguard, no cows have been found just yet. However, the search does continue. Now, of course, we said earlier in this video that these cows actually may have a significance beyond just being this self-referential joke, but with the original Call of Duty games taking so many inspirations over the years from various movies based on World War II times, it's not overly crazy to think that the original joke of no cows being harmed in the making of this game and just the ongoing joke of having cows appear throughout Call of Duty games may actually be an homage to a few different movies that have released over the years that involve both World War II and cows, surprisingly enough. For instance, Saving Private Ryan is probably one of the most notable films that the Call of Duty franchise has taken inspiration from, and it's very much so more than likely that the sequence involving the cows in the movie played a part in the decision to include the cows in Call of Duty, likely as an homage to that film, which is really one of the greatest World War II movies ever made. But there's actually a couple other films that also may have inspired the Infinity Ward team into starting this Easter egg. The movie The Cow and I, released in 1959 and was one of the most successful films in France that year with over 8 million seats sold. And it's a story about a French prisoner of war during World War II forced to work in a farm in Germany, and he decides that he's gonna escape by walking away with a cow named Margaret. There also was another World War II movie released in 1951 called Appointment with Venus, which essentially is a film based on the real story of the Alderney cattle evacuation, but in this story, a prized pedigree cow named Venus ends up getting left behind, and that cow is pregnant, so there's like this petition to send a team to go and save this cow. I don't know, the story sounds absolutely wild. There's like a chase scene with a German E-boat, and they have to take it out with a Royal Navy motor torpedo boat or something. And while this sounds kind of goofy, like we said, all of the Call of Duty games have heavily taken inspiration from various movies over the years. It's not too crazy to think they maybe watched a couple of these movies that have cows involved in them and just kind of thought that it's a funny ongoing gag to maybe hint at the no cows were harmed in the making of this game thing. Actually, for a little while, there were rumors suggesting that Ewan McGregor would star in a remake of this movie, though it doesn't seem like anything ever actually came from this. This ultimately just ends up being one of those Easter eggs that have existed over the course of well over a decade at this point that has just been a recurring trend themed throughout the years, and even if every game doesn't end up having the Easter egg, it's still a really cool nod to acknowledge that this has been a reference throughout many different eras of the Call of Duty franchise, and that even to this day there's still a fan base that is willing to look out and spot these things if they do come up once again. We do think it's interesting how, for the most part, Infinity Ward has kept some sort of subtle nod to the previous Call of Duty games, and that's something we hope we see continue throughout the upcoming years.
I'm on the Reese. I'm on the Reese. Take a good hard look at the map. I'm on the Reese, take a look at me. Straight flying through the air on a teleporter. Busting tens, I'm a sec, reaching at my leg. You can't stop me, cause I'm on some jug. Take it, Trick, I'm on the Reese. We just drinking some double tap, cause it's so crisp. I got my ray gun and my Wonder Waffies. I'm zombies.